Chapter 1414, Separate. Chapter 1414, Separate. It was an immense, shoreless ocean without a layer of clouds and atmosphere. There were broken pieces of stars and asteroids, and a terrifying deadly blast. A Skull Island was carefully avoiding the asteroids and broken rocks on its way to land on the sea surface. Above the sea is a dangerous area. We better move to the water surface. It should be safer, suggested my G. The little skeleton agreed. Thus, the Skull Island slowly landed on the Sea of Annihilation. Just like a massive cruise, it continued to move further. The three of them sat on the Skull Island and finally arrived at the Sea of Annihilation. Shi Yang looked at the little skeleton with wary eyes. He then turned to my G and relaxed. Where are we on the Sea of Annihilation? It's just a remote area that's still pretty far away from the deep ocean. At our speed, it will take around half a month to get to the island where the Whitebone clan is. We can stop by our Phantom clan's island first. We'll be in there in about 10 days, explained my G. Shi Yang nodded and looked at the little skeleton. What do you think? Nah, what else is there to think about? My G arched her brow and said casually. He's a member of the Whitebone clan. Of course, he has to return to his clan. I'm sure the members of the Whitebone clan will do everything they can to help his parents gain their consciousness back. The Whitebone clan had a small population. Thus, among the 7 great clans, the Whitebone clan was the most harmonious clan. They had almost no civil war. It was very hard and took a long time to get a new member of the clan. Also, they had to drain their power fighting against others, so they didn't have energy to create an internal dispute. In fact, their union was seriously taken into account. They had restricted and punished any internal dispute that could cause a war. Nobody had ever seen 2 members of the Whitebone clan attack each other. To him, returning to the Whitebone clan is the best choice. We should respect his choice, my G said seriously. Shi Yang looked at the little skeleton and considered how to say what he thought. I know a method to wake up your parents. However, the requirement is really complicated and it will take a long time. Yeah, I think you should return to Whitebone clan first. When I get a new method, I'll find you and help you. The little skeleton looked at him in the eyes. His mouth moved slightly. He gave a slight nod, his eyes showing gratitude. You should go with us. The Phantom clan is on the way anyway. After we got there, I'll show you the way to the Whitebone clan, said my G. The little skeleton nodded again. Thus, the 3 of them continued to ride the Skull Island, moving on the Sea of Annihilation and heading to the base of the Phantom clan. On their journey, they found so many islands. They were like stars in the sky that they couldn't count. They saw many giant ships moving on the sea, carrying many warriors from alien tribes. Although my G was wearing her mask, many of them had recognized her. Sometimes, when they saw her far away, they had already greeted. On a massive ship made of cold steel, around 10 bulky alien warriors were moving. They were all brawny with fierce auras. They stayed half naked and showed the muscles of their rigid, metal-like bodies. Their skin even sparkled and reflected the cold light. Those people had an animal skin pattern on their bodies. They had horns and their arms and thighs were twice as big as those of normal people. They gave people the impression of something powerful and explosive. An alien found my G. He looked so thrilled. Without prior announcement, he leaped up and landed grumblingly like a steel mountain on the Skull Island. He was a 3rd sky of Immortal Realm expert cultivating sharp metal power Upanishad. His body was like real steel or iron. Apparently, he knew my G. As soon as he landed, he laughed loudly. My G, long time no see. I heard that you went to Dragon Lizard Star. You recruited the Water Tribe, didn't you? His eyes moved and stopped at the little skeleton. He looked a little surprised. A kid from the Whitebone clan? Why did you go with the Whitebone clan? I have never heard that you would be associated with Whitebone clan members. He glanced at Shi Yang for a second. He didn't pay a lot of attention because he thought that Shi Yang was just an ordinary warrior. Yerberg, why are you here? My G smiled. Aha. They say that someone found the absolute beginning vestiges under the sea. The old men in the clan led me here to check it out. My G, you've based in the Sea of Annihilation for years because of the Phantom Clan. Do you know anyone who is familiar with the seabed? Asked the beefy alien man with a smile. The seabed? My G furrowed her brows. The real seabed isn't a place that you and I can intrude. I'm based in the sea domain of nihility and I can't explore this. My G shook her head. Yerberg didn't force her. He continued with a smile. I heard that Singh was dead. Tate is screaming everywhere that the mysterious Sky Clan killed him. They are planning to retaliate against the mysterious Sky Clan. I'm afraid this Sea of Annihilation will become chaotic again. You should be careful. I also heard that you did join that event in Dragon Lizard Star. Tate. My G pouted her lips. What the heck does he think he is? With his realm, what effect can he bring to the Sea of Annihilation? He doesn't want to live more as he's trying to stir up the sea. Tate has only second sky of immortal realm cultivation base. It's true that he can't rise the wind. But what if his teacher is here too? Yerberg almost shouted. My G discolored. What? That old freak comes to the Sea of Annihilation? Perhaps it's related to the absolute beginning vestige under the Sea of Annihilation. Who knows? Anyway, he's in the Sea of Annihilation now. Yeah, you can confirm this with your team when you come back. Then, Yerberg lowered his voice. I heard that you got a kid on Dragon Lizard Star who has the wisp of a soul of an absolute beginning creature. Did you refine him? Tell me honestly, have you reached the bottleneck to break through to the territory ancestor realm? My G grimaced and coldly looked at Yerberg. Now, everybody knows what had happened on Dragon Lizard Star. Don't ask me. That's what Tate has spread. I got the news from the Soul Clan. I'm not sure if they are true or fake, Yerberg shrugged. Well, recently, we have only these things fly around. It's hard not to know. Oh right, there's something else. Someone from the Devouring Clan asked me to find two experts called Nazorio and Bostos. They said that they've confirmed that these two were dead. They wanted me to investigate the details. If you got something you know, just tell me. I'm sure the price I offer will satisfy you. Okay, my G wore a cold face and waved her hand. We don't have much time to babble with you. Yerberg laughed and nodded to my G and the little skeleton before returning to his battleship. Shortly after, they left and disappeared. Who is he? Shiyang watched the disappearing battleship. Cultivates metal power Upanishad at third sky of immortal realm. His body is so tough. I think he's not weaker than Singh. Yerberg came from a branch of the ancient monster clan. He's in charge of collecting news and information around the sea domain of nihility. That's how I know him. I didn't expect that Tate would let everybody know what had happened on Dragon Lizard Star. That old freak is also in the Sea of Annihilation, unexpectedly, my G sighed. Who is Tate's teacher? Asked Shiyang. He could see my G become more worried when she heard that person was in the Sea of Annihilation. At her peak of immortal realm, only the territory ancestor realm expert could make her worried. Indeed, my G said, he's the owner of the soul refining cauldron. He's one of the territory ancestor realm experts of the Soul Clan. Wherever he goes, people have to live in calamities. He needs countless souls to recover the soul refining cauldron to achieve the real power of an absolute beginning divine weapon. That cauldron is not fixed yet. Shiyang discolored in fright. Of course not. It needs a large amount of soul energy. Otherwise, you think Singh can borrow it from the owner? My G pouted. I'm sure Singh had to pound his chest to ensure that he could take Dragon Lizard's soul. That's how he could persuade that old monster. Shiyang was astounded. The Skull Island continued its journey. 10 days later, the Skull Island anchored by a massive island. The island had flowers and green grass matted everywhere alongside the large pieces of forest. So many beautiful and luxury palaces situated on the island, which were sparkling because they were built of jade. They were so eye-catching. The mist and smoke wound around the island, making the entire island a fairyland. My G observed the island and smiled relaxedly. She took off the mask and revealed the face that could attract all creatures. Looking at the familiar island, she found many familiar barriers and restrictions. She pointed to a direction and said to the little skeleton, "You move that way." After 5 days, you will reach the base of the Whitebone clan. It's also a bone island, easy to recognize. The little skeleton was reluctant, looking at Shi Yang deep in the eyes. Shi Yang thought for a while, then said, I need time to prepare something to wake up your parents. Actually, I need a long time. We can't rush. I agree with you, whenever I'm done, I'm going there to find you. The little skeleton nodded. It didn't talk much, driving the Skull Island away and disappearing. Mai Ji watched until the Skull Island disappeared from her sight. She pondered and then said, I don't know what you will do to awake his parents, but I can tell you that, even if he returns to the Whitebone clan, with their force in the Whitebone clan, they can't wake up his parents. They are 2 territory ancestor realm experts. To refill the lost energy, the energy required is more than what you can imagine. You'd better get rid of that fixation. Moreover, you don't know him. You don't need to do things for him. I know what I'm doing. Shi Yang was fed up. Mai Ji snorted and didn't persuade him more. Follow me. A snow lotus emerged in her palm. When the lotus bloomed, layers of mist above the island slowly dispersed. The invisible barriers and restrictions were lifted. Shi Yang followed her to the island full of flowers. His eyes sparkled when he observed the surroundings. Chapter 14:15, also a pitiful woman. Chapter 14:15, also a pitiful woman. After Yerberg parted with Mai Ji, his cold iron battleship rushed back to the ancient monster clan's base in the Sea of Annihilation. It was also a massive island. He directly went to the inside of a mountain on the island. Inside the mountain, it was another fairyland with diagonal stone paths everywhere leading to many spacious stone buildings. Yerberg didn't say anything and directly walked to one of those stone buildings to check something. Shortly after, he found a drawing. Unexpectedly, it was Shi Yang's portrait. Yerberg gave a faint smile. It's that kid, indeed. While he was talking to Mai Ji, he threw Shi Yang just a glance, then ignored him all the time. However, with that glance, he could guess his identity. A kid with a wisp of a soul of an absolute beginning creature, but he has only first sky of immortal realm. What a big fat meat. Tate agrees to pay a high price to get the intelligence. Should I give it to him? He hesitated for a few seconds, then made up his mind before grinning. Of course, making money is an important thing. I returned Mai Ji's favor. Oh right, that little skeleton too. He's involved with the 2 the devouring clan is searching. I got a good harvest this time. Haha, I just got to the Sea of Annihilation and I'm going to earn a big chunk this time. Shortly afterward, he contacted the devouring clan and Tate of the Soul clan, telling them the intelligence he got. Madam Mai Ji is back. Madam Mai Ji is home. Welcome back. Madam Mai Ji. On this island filled with flowers, the crowd of beautiful men and women were cheering and smiling honestly. This crowd had handsome men with ease and natural poise, and beautiful and charming women. Everybody was excellent and pretty. At first glance, many people had to sigh with envy. The creator had favored this race a lot. It wasn't a rumor that the Phantom clan didn't have a single ugly member. On the way, Shi Yang felt a little dizzy and stunned. The members of the Phantom clan on this island didn't have the same realms. They were young, but they were already original God realm, ethereal God realm, and incipient God realm. The clan had sent them to the sea domain of nihility to cultivate and collect the information, intelligence here. Deep in this sea domain of nihility, only the warriors at the immortal realm could walk around without fear. However, if they were from the race with a strong foundation like the 7 great clans, they had the best battleships to resist the dangers in outer space. They could deliver their low-realm members to any area. Those young and beautiful people of the Phantom clan were delivered here by those powerful battleships. The sky and the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation had layers of death traps. It was tough for incipient God realm experts to move freely around. However, it was really safe on those islands. Even King God realm warriors could stay and cultivate comfortable. This island was the Phantom clan's base. Mai Ji was the leader of this island. She was in charge of collecting and sorting information. She was also the one with the highest realm. When she wasn't here, her fellows couldn't ease their minds. And now, she came back, so they exhaled in relief. The Phantom Clan was the clan with the best intelligence. If they based here, of course, they knew what had happened on Dragon Lizard Star. After Mai Ji had disappeared, they were so worried if she had to endure something unexpected. Today, Mai Ji returned safe and sound. All of them were joyful. Of course, many of them were curious about Shi Yang and they observed him along the way. At this moment, Shi Yang was wearing a dark blue warrior costume. He was vigorous and hunky, which attracted a lot of Phantom Clan young ladies. They shyly looked at him. Mai Ji directly walked to the grand, luxurious palace in the center. The palace was tiled with square jade and decorated with so many exquisite and beautiful accessories. The twinkle jades and shining pearls could be found everywhere. She walked to the main hall, sitting on the high throne. She signaled Shi Yang to stand aside. Talking nothing, she began to check the documents of the recent intelligence. Some young ladies at Original God Realm and Incipient God Realm were talking with each other in this hall. Sometimes, their pretty eyes turned to Shi Yang. Then, they stooped and giggled. They were really eye-catching, though. Mai Ji was focusing on the records. She didn't notice Shi Yang. Her white fingers continuously flipped the pages as she frowned. When she came to the last page, her face became cold as she hissed, "That damn Yerberg. He's so ungrateful." Shi Yang looked at her. "Yerberg discolored your information. He said that you have a wisp of a soul from an absolute beginning creature and that you and I are here. At least, Tate from the Soul Clan knows this. Yerberg also said that we're involved in the deaths of Nazorio and Bostos," explained Mai Ji. Shi Yang was chilled. He remembered the ancient monster man with an iron body as he said, "If we meet him again, I'll try to kill him." Hearing her, the Phantom Clan ladies in the hall quieted down. They all looked at him with odd countenances. They knew Yerberger's identity and his third sky of Immortal Realm cultivation base. Madame Mai Ji could defeat him but couldn't kill him. This unknown kid had only first sky of Immortal Realm, but he was boasting. They felt really awkward. However, what Mai Ji spoke next surprised them. "Kill him? Unless you've reached second sky of Immortal Realm. If you fight with him now, you'll be killed." This surprised the ladies a lot. When they looked at Shi Yang now, they felt so bewildered. Mai Ji put the records down and looked at the ladies next to her. "A girl is leaving Dragon Lizard Star. She will come to the Sea of Annihilation. Her name is Audrey, you should pay attention." She took out a flat jade, asking Shi Yang, "You draw her portrait here. It will be easier to find her. We'll try our best to find her." Shi Yang did as he was told. "We can't receive information fast. You have to wait, but I'm not sure how long you have to wait," said Mai Ji. Shi Yang nodded as he understood. "You'd better not leave this place. I'm afraid many people want to do something with you. This area is our Phantom Clan's base. Unless the members of the 7 great clans want a bloody war between the 2 clans, they won't tear the agreement between us to intrude this island." "You're safe here," said Mai Ji. Shi Yang frowned and didn't answer. "Madam, while you weren't here, Batum sent his messenger here," a lady suddenly said while Mai Ji was contemplating. Mai Ji winced. Her mood was bad as she shouted, "Do not mention this person to me ever." The ladies kept silent and nodded as they were scared. "Yu Lian, arrange a lodge for this man." Mai Ji waved her hand. A young woman at Incipient God Realm bowed to her and then talked to Shi Yang. "Follow me." Shi Yang kept silent and followed her out of the palace to an elegant building in another area. Along the way, he asked curiously, "Who's Batum? Why does your madam feel irritated when she hears his name?" Yu Lian was around 18 or 19 years old and wearing a long, green dress. She looked purely beautiful. She turned around to check then lowered her voice. "Tell you later." She took Shi Yang to a tower then said, "Batum is a terrifying expert. He's not the member of the 7 great clan. He cultivates alone but he's so brutal. In this Sea of Annihilation, he belongs to the sort of the most dangerous characters. He has learned dark energy. After 10 years max, he will reach the territory ancestor realm. He always lives in the seabed of the sea domain of nihility. One day, he got out to exchange cultivating materials and he saw Madame Mai Ji. He fell in love immediately. He has been chasing after my G for many years. He even came to our clan and promised to support us if the elders let my G marry him. An expert who's going to become a territory ancestor, Shi Yang nodded. This man is predestined to become a territory ancestor realm expert. What did your elders say about this? They thought it was possible. They even asked Madame Mai Ji to strictly follow their decision. Madame didn't agree. She was very resolute and tough to her seniors, too. Yu Lian sighed. Although Betam's realm is really high and profound, his so ugly. It's natural that Madame doesn't agree. If I were her, I wouldn't agree, either. If he looked a little better, with his profound realm, it could work. But his appearance, ew. This young lady stood on my G's side. She was discontent with the elders' decision. What's the result? Shi Yang continued to ask. There was a big fight between the elders and my G. Then, the elders proposed a solution. If my G can enter the territory ancestor realm before Betam, they won't force her anymore. But if she can't, she has to agree with them. She actually agreed with their proposal. I don't know what she had in her head. She didn't understand dark energy. How could she break through to territory ancestor realm faster than Betam? We all think that she's just trying to buy more time. We're afraid she would do something bad, sighed Yu Lian. Shi Yang got it now. He finally understood why after my G found that he had the wisp of a soul from an absolute beginning create, she had acted rashly. Turned out she also got some trouble. As my G wanted to reach the territory ancestor realm fast, there wasn't any faster method than refining him. Under pressure, she could do anything for her standing against the forced marriage. And, Betam has considered Madame Mai Ji as something that belongs to him. He told the entire Sea of Annihilation that she must be his woman. He usually comes here to bother her. He's sure that Madame can't enter the territory ancestor realm faster than him. Thus, he thought everything was settled. Yu Lian continued, after Madame had left, he came here and told us that he's now just a step away from the territory ancestor realm. He's refining his own territory. He has to become the owner of a world. Whenever his incipient extent transforms to the territory, he will be a real territory ancestor. Shi Yang knew that the experts at the territory ancestor realm had to refine their incipient extents. After they could become the real territory, it was the time they had officially become a territory ancestor expert. Shi Yang sighed. He didn't expect that Mai Ji, a member of the 7 great clans, wouldn't be able to control her fate. She was also a pitiful woman. Chapter 1416, The Call from the Seabed. Chapter 1416, The Call from the Seabed. Shi Yang was staying in the Phantom Clan's base. After reaching the immortal realm, he fought or cultivated the power Upanishad all the time. He didn't give himself time to relax. This island belonged to the Phantom Clan. It was where they collected information. Of course, it was also the place they used to recruit hotshots and benefit their clan. For example, Mai Ji had visited the Water Tribe and talked to Yuan Mo. She had persuaded and recruited the Water Tribe, making it a force that was dependent on the Phantom Clan. In the Sea of Annihilation and also the surrounding areas, there were several second-class clans dependent on the Phantom Clan. Mai Ji was here to establish a close connection with them. Inside the elegant tower, Shi Yang sat quietly, his face cold. He was thinking about the events that had just happened recently. He had thought a lot about them. Forefather Dragon Lizard of the Dragon Lizard clan, Tu Shi and Ya Yun from the mysterious Sky clan, Sing was killed, Ming Hong had gotten into Audrey's head, Mai Ji, the Little Skeleton and the Devouring clan. The immortal realm is still a low realm level. Shi Yang forced a smile and sighed. If he had reached territory ancestor realm, it would have not been a problem on Dragon Lizard Star. He could have threatened Sing and Ming Hong easily. Mai Ji wouldn't have had a chance to turn him into a meaty pie and try her best to refine his soul. If he had reached the territory ancestor realm, in this Sea of Annihilation, Yerberg wouldn't have dared to rumor anything or disclose his identity. Even if he did that, at territory ancestor realm, Shi Yang wouldn't be afraid of any challenge in the Sea of Annihilation. But now, he quickly decided his plan. He must find Audrey and locate the territory entrance. Even if they couldn't return to desolate territory now, at least they would have an exit. He needed to be stronger. Immortal realm experts could become peerless in desolate territory. However, in the sea domain of nihility, they weren't the top warriors. If he wanted to survive, he had to make efforts to increase his competence continuously. Shi Yang let his soul consciousness check his internal organs, souls, and bone frames. His furrowed brows relaxed. If he wanted to be stronger rapidly, he knew he had a simple method. Devour. His devouring power Upanishad. Shi Yang made up his mind quickly. On the way to the Sea of Annihilation, his realm stabilized. What he needed now was energy. He needed all the energy he could get in his body. Also, if he wanted to help the little skeleton's parents, he had to gather a lot of energy. After several days, he hadn't received any news from Mai Ji. After she returned to this island, Mai Ji had parted from him. She didn't meet him once. He called for Yu Lian. The young girl came with fear. "Why do you call me?" "Madam Mai Ji said that you should stay here and cultivate." "Don't worry. Once we get news about the girl you want to find, we will tell you immediately." "Which area of the Sea of Annihilation is the most chaotic?" asked Shi Yang all of a sudden. "What do you mean?" Yu was surprised. "Where do battles take place the most? Where do a lot of people die?" Shi Yang tried to make himself clear. Yu Lian pointed at the ground and said without too much thinking, "The seabed." "The seabed?" Shi Yang was surprised. The Sea of Annihilation's seabed is so vast. It attracts so many warriors to come and explore. Deep undersea, precious treasures and materials are often found. It's when the experts come and compete for them. The seabed is the fiercest battlefield. "We won't go there recklessly because we're afraid of furious battles," answered Yu Lian. "So which section has the fiercest battles?" asked Shi Yang. "I'm not sure," Yu Lian frowned. "The seabed is so vast. The explorers are also scattered around. Sometimes, it takes a lot of effort to find someone." Shi Yang nodded and pondered for a while. He then said, "You tell Mai Ji that I'm going out for a while." Then, he didn't mind Yu Lian's words, turning into a thunderbolt and flying away. The Phantom Clan's island had many barriers and restrictions. However, those were used to defend against people intruding the island. It wasn't easy to get into the island. However, it was no problem to fly out from the inside. Thus, Shi Yang could fly away freely. Yu Lian didn't stop him and she couldn't stop him, anyway. She could only see him fly away. Yu Lian was dumbstruck. After she could get a hold of herself, she hurried to find Mai Ji and tell her that he was gone. Mai Ji wore brocade and silk dress and sat inside a secret chamber in the main hall. She was holding a yellow ancient book. After listening to Yu Lian, she waved her hand and said, "I got it. You can leave now." Yu Lian left quietly. Mai Ji dropped the ancient book, her beautiful face suspicious. She thought for a while and mumbled to herself, "That kid has so many secrets. But why does he have to visit the most chaotic areas? Does he have any conspiracy?" Her thoughts changed and she stepped out of the secret chamber. After giving orders to her close subordinates, she left the island. Seabed. A figure covered in the starlight slowly sank into the sea. The blue sea surface was above his head and he was facing the dark, cold water with the pressure increasing continuously. Inside the light curtain, Shi Yang was observing his surroundings while sinking deeper. In this cold sea, there was no fish. Shi Yang's soul consciousness expanded and he found only the cold, dark areas. He rose a finger and poked through the light curtain to touch the sea water. The sea water was indeed icy. It seemed like the cold could seep into his bones and marrow. He retracted his finger, slowly quieted down, and closed his eyes. He was using the soul power to survey the surroundings with the hope of finding a group of people. It would be better if he could find a battle. He needed battles. He needed people to die. He needed energy from them. He was still sinking deeper toward the seabed, frowning and thinking. According to Mai Ji, someone said that the Sea of Annihilation was like a funnel. The surface of the sea was the bottom of the funnel, and the seabed was hundreds of times bigger than the sea surface. It could be as big as an immense territory. He didn't really believe that. But now, he understood it. Since he was a warrior cultivating space power Upanishad, the speed of his soul energy and soul consciousness was 10 or even 100 times faster than a normal warrior's. However, his soul consciousness had reached the limit before it could cover a part of the sea of annihilation. Although he had let his soul consciousness reach as far as he could, he felt that this sea didn't have an end. After a while, he sent a wisp of soul consciousness into the heavenly fantasy star compass to check the time. It had been 3 days since he began to sink into the sea. And he was still sinking. How deep was this sea? However, he had to reduce his speed because the water pressure became more terrifying the deeper he went. At his realm and cultivation base, he gradually felt tired. One day, he suddenly stopped sinking and hovered in the sea. His soul consciousness changed direction. He sent it toward the seabed. As his soul consciousness wasn't tied by the water pressure, it moved rapidly and searched. Oh! Shiyang opened his eyes. The strange light flared from his eyes when his body shivered. He was so surprised when he looked at the seabed underneath. His face became odd. He had sensed a familiar aura deep undersea. Somewhere deep down there, a voice was calling him. He suddenly felt that he could trust that call. To be more exact, that soul calling aimed at his co-soul, and his co-soul reported that familiar aura. His co-soul had fused with Grace Mainland, one of Desolate's wisps. It was also the soul of an absolute beginning creature. That familiar aura sent him a trustful feeling. What was it? He knew that it was really far from him. With the distance his soul consciousness had sensed, it would take around 10 days to get there. Shiyang frowned and hovered astounded. The absolute beginning era was the epoch of annihilation. The absolute beginning creatures were so powerful. They were the ancestors of billions of creatures, and they were also the Creator's favorite children. Those intimidating creatures were born with terrifying powers. Although the warriors had improved and advanced power Upanishads for many years, the absolute beginning creatures were still the strongest in this world. The thing that made his co-soul, the absolute beginning creature soul, feel family and trust, what is it? Hesitating for a while, he made his decision, which he acted upon immediately. He flew to the area that his soul consciousness had sensed. That area was pretty far from him and in the deeper level of the sea. He couldn't move fast in the water because of the pressure. Slowly, the light cage he made from star energy wore out. After several days, he had to stop and gather his god power by using the star power Upanishad to weave a new light cage. Somewhere on the seabed. So many light cages were moving. Each of those different colored light cages contained a beefy man. If Shiyang was here, he would have found that they were the men he had met. The leader of this group was Embark. He stayed half naked, showing the exquisite beast marks on his upper body. He was calmly moving through the water. A green light cage moved next to him, carrying a small and thin alien. His eyes sparkled as if he was checking something. Gradually, he looked restless. It should be near here. I'm sure it's just around. How could things go wrong? Lately, when I came, I found it near here. That alien warrior had spent a lot of time going around the seabed. The previous time he came here with some comrades, he found an absolute beginning vestige accidentally. However, they couldn't approach it. Their souls became dizzy and they lost their consciousness shortly. When they woke up, they were floating on the sea surface. Yerberg suddenly stopped, his face dark as he hissed. I hope you could guide us in the right way. Otherwise, you know the consequence. As soon as he said that, the little alien changed his visage and even his green light cage trembled, becoming extremely unstable. Another area on the seabed. So many cold-looking warriors were surrounding a tall and thin woman. They were raking around as if they were searching for something. Whether they were male or female warriors, they all had thick black scales as their natural armor. They were all tall and muscular. The thick demon chi diffused from them and gave people a terrifying warning. The woman was the leader of this group. She was also tall and thin with thick black scaled armor. The black scales seemed to grow from her skin and they were part of her body. They were the members of the Black Demon clan. Chapter 1417, Go Together. Chapter 1417, Go Together. Seabed. A flow of starlight zoomed fast like a meteor and headed in a direction. It flashed and then disappeared. The twinkling starlight was brilliant and beautiful, but it was also as dangerous as a cold sword. It felt even colder than the sea water. Swoosh! The starlight halted. Inside the starlight, Shiyang wore a solemn face and looked at the group of warriors with the thick demon chi in front of him. He changed his face and couldn't help but shout. Black Scale Clan. He used to fight against the demon clan in the endless sea of Grace Mainland. He thought about those warriors with black-scaled armor. However, it was a surprise that he could see the members of the Black Scale Clan deep under the Sea of Annihilation. He was bewildered. However, watching carefully, he found that they were different from the Black Scale Clan. The black scales on their bodies were smaller and more delicate. They seemed to be refined from real bones and dyed black. Also, the scales of the Black Scale Clan members looked as if they were made of metal. He was bewildered for a while but then reacted fast. He remembered my Ji used to tell him about a race. Immediately, he said, Black Demon Clan. The Black Demon Clan was one of the 7 great clans in the sea domain of Nihility. They were famous for their combative nature. They were a clan that could give others a headache. No one wanted to provoke this clan. The woman from the Black Demon Clan looked as rough as a man. She didn't have any beautiful features. Hearing Shiyang scream, she shot him a cold look and then urged her people. Don't delay our business. Keep on going. The male and female warriors of the Black Demon Clan looked savage. They glanced at Shiyang and then left quietly. They were leaving in the direction Shiyang had sensed earlier. Shiyang was also surprised. Pondering for a few seconds, he grinned and followed them neither slow nor fast. Farlo, why don't you kill him? Asked the hunky man of the Black Demon Clan. His body was like a black mountain with cold and dark aura. Telika, we're here to find the vestige. Don't cause more trouble. The rough woman turned around with a stern face. She looked at the man behind her, thought, and then said, We're in the Sea of Annihilation. There can be some territory ancestors here. Don't think that the others will always be afraid of us. But that kid has only first sky of Immortal Realm cultivation base, snorted Telika. Farlo, is it true that you've become a coward since we came to the Sea of Annihilation? If it's true, I think I'm more suitable to lead this group. The woman he called Farlo looked at him coldly and said, He's not someone you can kill easily. If he's from another force and he can find the vestige because of our location, we will have one more obstacle. Telika was resolute. Just a first sky of Immortal Realm. It's easy to kill him. And our whereabouts won't be disclosed. The other members of the Black Demon Clan nodded quietly and agreed with Telika. They thought that it made sense. It was very important. To locate the vestige, the Black Demon Clan had to spend a lot of effort. They couldn't afford any mistake. Killing someone who could possibly become trouble was the right decision. Farlo looked bored. If you think it's easy to kill him, just try it. We will wait for you for 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Too much. I'm going to be back right away. Telika grinned. He shot backward like a ruthless sword. The sea water parted as if it was proactively making way for him. Shortly after, he stopped Shiyang in his way. Shiyang frowned and hovered. The light moved around his body. He looked at the Black Demon Man who obviously didn't come with goodwill. What do you want? To kill you, Telika said simply. He laughed and balled his fingers into a massive fist like a hammer. He grumblingly pounded on Shiyang's head. Boom, boom, boom. Thick thunders came from his punch. The exploding power in the terrifying thunders was like a furious water current that was breaking a dam. With the will and momentum, it could break any obstacle. Shiyang lifted his head and looked at the torrential water. He felt like many mountains were pressing on him. Kill me. With your second sky of Immortal Realm? Ridiculous. Shiyang frowned and raised his hand to snatch the man. Sharp lights emerged from his fingers. The strong light parted into 5 rivers that could cut everything and crush the thunder. Boom, boom, boom. The ear-breaking explosions echoed above Shiyang's head. The savage Black Demon Man had 5 cuts on his fist. He screamed and looked at the cuts on his fists in disbelief. Space power Upanishad. Shiyang didn't answer and just acted. His 5 fingers snatched over Telika and pulled the void. The 5 dazzling lights were like sharp swords twisted together and aimed at Telika's chest. If he let it thrust into his body, he couldn't avoid death. Space power Upanishad. What can you do with it? Telika sneered. Thunder exploded in his chest. Instantly, thunder rumbled from his entire body like drumbeats, shaking the entire sea area. He curled his lips. The energy in his eyes condensed into 2 silver spears and stabbed forward. A massive light shield emerged from Shiyang's chest, blocking the 2 cold spears. Telika still wanted to attack Shiyang more. A figure flashed. It was Farlow who had stopped him earlier. I told you it's not easy to kill him. You've confirmed it. Why do you still want to waste your power? It requires a lot of energy to kill a warrior with space power Upanishad. Do you want to delay our business? If so, you can leave this group now and go say sorry to the elders. The muscular woman with masculine features had a husky voice. She wasn't polite when she criticized him. She turned to Shiyang, her eyes serious. You're not a member of the 7 great clans. I hope you won't follow us furthermore. Otherwise, we won't let you go easily. Telika snorted and rolled his eyes maliciously at Shiyang. I don't have time to waste on you. You're lucky today. The female leader of the Black Demon clan nodded as she saw her fellow agree with her. She didn't say more and left. If you're bold, just keep following us. Telika grinned fiendishly after the woman had left. Shiyang rubbed his chin and said indifferently, of course, I have to keep moving. It's the same direction. Is it the same place I've sensed? He immediately moved. After a while, another group of warriors came to this place. Yerberg was the leader of this group. After Yerberg arrived, he closed his eyes to sense for a while. Then, his eyes brightened as he laughed. I could smell Telika's thunder here. He had just fought with someone not a long time ago. He looked in the direction where the Black Demon clan and Shiyang had left, laughing contentedly. It seems like we don't need a guide anymore. Then, he turned around and killed the thin alien warrior that had taken them here. Chapter 1418, Cannon Fodder. Chapter 1418, Cannon Fodder. He's still following us. Telika stopped and turned around to check. The lightning was like a massive python that wound around him. We should kill him to prevent others from finding us. All of a sudden, they saw many green bubbles floating and drifting in the dark sea water. Those bubbles were translucent and floating quietly. They didn't rise up to the surface. Farlow was about to answer him before she saw those green bubbles. Her face changed instantly. The warriors of the Black Demon clan turned around to look. They were also frightened and didn't mind Telika. Also, Telika was bewildered himself. Each green bubble carried an icy corpse. However, all the corpses were withered like a dry stick. Their faces were twisted in extreme fear and despair. It seemed like they had seen something utterly terrible before they died, or they had been tortured until they died. Looking at their horrible facial expressions, the other warriors felt so chilled. Countless cold corpses floated inside the bubbles. The bubbles were like coffins that covered their dry, dead bodies. Those bodies didn't have any signs of a battle. However, their distorted faces were so eye-catching and they made Farlow and Telika inwardly cold. Something is wrong. Farlow was cautious and raised one hand to signal the others to stop. They kept a distance with those green bubbles. They didn't come near rashly. Farlow checked each body and observed for a while. They didn't fight. No wound. We can say they, pausing for seconds, she lowered her voice and hissed, their souls were captured instantly. Before they died, they had seen something desperately horrible. Otherwise, their faces wouldn't twist like that even after they died. I don't know why I feel insecure when I see their faces, whispered a member of the Black Demon clan. I have the same feeling. Me too. It's like an instinct. Looking at them, we think that we will face something like that and we will end up like them. After they had expressed their opinions, they all quieted down all of a sudden. They felt a chill run down their spines as if the sea water was running through their bodies and affecting their minds. It made everybody restless. Farlow turned around. Not far behind them, a white cluster suddenly flashed. It looked like someone was hiding. Teleka, can we avoid going through that area? She pondered for a few seconds and then turned to the other. Teleka frowned and shook his head. It seems like we can't. It's strange, though. What's strange? Asked Farlow. I killed that man to rob the memories of this route. We are going the right way. However, they didn't see these bubbles. The route is correct. So, there is only one possibility. Teleka changed his visage slightly. Those green bubbles have just appeared recently. They didn't exist. We can say that they weren't there before. If we can't move around, we can get through them once. Anyway, I think it's not good. If we have to get in there, something bad will happen for sure, said Farlow. Your intuition is always precise. If you say something bad will happen, it will happen. Teleka nodded. Whenever they encountered some important situation, he never stopped trusting Farlow. I have an idea, he suddenly grinned evilly. Everybody knew he was cunning enough. Their eyes brightened. Some warriors who were close to him saw him look over his shoulder sometimes with his bright eyes. They understood and grinned like him. You are saying that Farlow's masculine face had a sinister resolution. She also understood his idea. We need someone to scout, Teleka grinned, his face ferocious. Of course, we can't sacrifice our members. That rascal sneaking behind us wants to die. We should fulfill his wish. Farlow nodded and agreed with his idea. He cultivates space power Upanishad. You can't handle him single-handed. We should. Before she finished, she halted, her face changing in fear. Not good. Someone is coming. Teleka and the warriors of the Black Demon clan became tense. They urged their powers and got ready to engage in a battle. Shortly after, Yerburger's straightforward laughter came from afar. He took several men of the ancient monster tribe and went with fearless countenances. Yerburg laughed loudly. We were lost for a while on the way. Thank you Teleka for fighting with someone. You left your special aura there. You helped me to get back to the right route. Teleka grimaced. Yerburg, you're here for the vestige too? Of course, Yerburg laughed casually. Don't think that only you guys know about this. Oh, right. Tate also knows things related to this vestige. I think the Devouring clan and the Soul clan also pay attention to this matter. I'm not surprised that I saw you guys here. I think we will see more people from other directions. Yeah, we'll see them, sooner or later. Farlow and Teleka changed their faces slightly. They just realized that they would encounter a lot of bad things during this trip. How could it be? I've killed almost all of them. Teleka. You missed a fish. He sold the news about the vestige. But he didn't sell them to me first. I've just killed him recently. He'd created more opponents for this trip. He deserved death. Yerburg smiled nonchalantly. He looked at the green bubbles and gasped in surprise. What the heck are those? Should be some barriers or restriction, Farlow didn't conceal. She knew and concealed but couldn't do anything. She waved her hand to dismiss her people to let Yerburger's team come near. Of course, Yerburg wasn't going to try to be polite. He took his team and moved forward. A radiant halo emerged from his eyes when he gazed at so many green bubbles. His face became stern. Some evil soul energy had attacked them. They died instantly and tragically. Their brains were like porridge and their soul altars shattered. Someone has to go there, said Farlow. Can't move around? Asked Yerburg. We don't have any alternative now, Teleka snorted. The location of the vestige should be right under those bubbles. We have to get in there and dive deeper to see if we could find something. Yerburg was surprised as he laughed. Do you have any solution? Someone doesn't belong to our team or your team. On the way here, he has followed us. Now he's hiding, Farlow said and raised one hand. There. Yerburg grinned. I know your Black Demon clan is full of dark schemes. Turns out you already have cannon fodder. Yeah, it's good that you're not crazy. You don't plot against us. It's good that we have someone to scout and sacrifice though. He nodded to someone standing next to him. Go. Farlow had shown them the location. Of course, they wanted the ancient monster clan to go get the man. Yerberg didn't deny it. He straightforwardly agreed. A muscular ancient monster man roared like a beast about to hunt. Unexpectedly, his teeth had torn the corners of his mouths and become sharp and long like fangs. He directly stormed toward Shi Yang's hiding spot. As he roared, his brutal aura of a wild animal had turned into a massive fighting saber, which was around 10 meters. It cut and separated the water, slashing Shi Yang. Boop! 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 The seawater exploded wherever the saber slashed through. The area Farlow had pointed was seething and thundering grumblingly. However, there was no participle shadow that screamed or cursed. The beefy man of the ancient monster clan was surprised as he looked at Farlow. He doubted that she didn't point in the right place. Farlow darkened her face, her eyes angry. He cultivates space power Upanishad. I didn't expect that he had a profound realm. He could even teleport under the sea. Then, Farlow closed her eyes and searched again. However, she was wrong this time. Nothing. I can't sense his aura in the surrounding areas. He knows what we are planning too. I think he used the advantages of the space power Upanishad to get out of here. It means that we don't have a cannon fodder now? Yerberg sighed in disappointment. He signaled his warrior not to waste more energy. He knew Farlow's magical power Upanishad. If she said that this man wasn't around, they shouldn't waste more energy. Meanwhile, in the turbulent water area, Shi Yang was hiding. He seemed to have become part of the sea water, quietly bobbing at his spot. He had used the marvelous dark energy. While dark energy moved around the body, the aura on his bones, flesh, and veins disappeared. The typical features that were detectable also disappeared. It was like bloodthirsty remains that could be invisible. There was no way to see or sense them with the soul consciousness. That attack had hit him actually. That warrior of the ancient monster clan had reached first sky of immortal realm, but his body couldn't compare to Shi Yang's regarding evolution. Thus, that attack didn't hurt him at all. However, his mood was still bad. Staying hidden, he was like a venomous snake that watched Yerberg of the ancient monster clan and the cunning, evil Farlow and Telika. He licked his lips and tried to suppress his brute. Cannon fodder. It had been a long time since someone dared to treat him like that. Under the sea of annihilation, he now encountered such a humiliation. They had considered him cannon fodder. He looked at the groups of the ancient monster clan and the black demon clan discussing. They wanted to join hands and go through the clusters of green bubbles. Shi Yang sneered and waited silently. He was waiting to see them go deep into the area. Then, he would become a hunter that killed his prey and deemed themselves part of a noble, advanced race. He would use them to accumulate more energy. Chapter 1419, Sly Change. Chapter 1419, Sly Change. Countless crystal green bubbles floated like a silent green lantern or so many strange, evil eyes watching the others intruding. Each bubble carried a desiccated corpse, which had probably endured something utterly terrible before they died with a desperate and fearful face. Everybody, watch out, Farlow reminded. She was a woman with a body that was even brawnier than a man's. At this moment, she was covered inside so many white light layers. Her light protection looked like an egg that continuously released strange soul energy fluctuations. It seemed like she had sent so many wisps of soul consciousness to check around. The members of the Black Demon clan gathered by her. Telika stayed furthest away from her, but it was just around 20 steps. They were actually creating a formation with Farlow as the center. Yerberg led the ancient monster clan and tried to stay away from Farlow's group to avoid any possible dispute. Slowly, they moved toward the green bubbles. Farlow had a rare mind power Upanishad. She was sensitive to the soul consciousness and energy. Also, she had a miraculous intuition when they were in danger. She expanded her soul consciousness. All of a sudden, she looked at the turbulent area where it had exploded and doubted. When her soul consciousness reached that area, she vaguely felt a feeble wisp of soul energy. It flashed and then disappeared. When she tried to sense again, It had utterly disappeared. Just an illusion? She shook her head and suppressed the doubt in her mind, continuing to search through the green bubbles. Shi Yang was tense while hiding in his secret spot. He became more cautious. Farlow had just third sky of Immortal Realm. She couldn't detect Shi Yang precisely like Mai Ji had done when he used dark energy to hide. Anyway, this woman had a special power Upanishad that had almost busted Shi Yang when he was a little careless. Shi Yang had to be more cautious. He couldn't resist many members of the Black Demon clan and Ancient Monster clan here. As soon as he was exposed, he would suffer from the pitiful consequence of being their cannon fodder. Before the others had sunk deeply into the death trap, he had to ensure that he stayed concealed in his secret spot. Shi Yang retreated his released soul consciousness. He sealed himself and didn't try to sense the surroundings, using his eyes and ears. His pupils shrank all of a sudden. A muscular man of the Ancient Monster clan moved to the area between the green bubbles. He looked frightened and his soul was taken immediately. He became wild, screaming and then attacking the nearest Ancient Monster clan warrior. Thud. A ferocious giant snake shot out from his palm. In just a blink, the snake expanded and opened its dark, bloody mouth to swallow that member of the Ancient Monster clan. The snake fangs began to chew and tear the victim's body. Shriek. Shriek. All of a sudden, the screeching and shrieking arose from deep undersea. It was like a chilling saber drilling into people's hearts and slashing their soul altars. Farlow of the Black Demon clan released her soul consciousness to check the secrets of this area. Her muscular body couldn't help but shiver. Blood ran from her mouth, nostrils, eyes, and ears. They looked like many horrible blood snakes that rose the hair on people's heads. She had a deep fear on her face as she screamed ear-piercingly. "Retreat! Retreat all of you!" She screamed crazily. Instinctively, she wanted to get rid of this area. However, in almost a blink of an eye, this sea area's gravity felt 1,000 times heavier. It felt like so many invisible chains had come and tied all of them. The members of the Ancient Monster clan and Black Demon clan tried their best to struggle using their power Upanishads that they had been cultivated for thousands of years. Thunder and lightning exploded. The fire dragon roared. Icicles shelled everywhere. The rainbow light bloomed. The entire sea area was stirred up with exploding energies. The warriors in that death trap seemed to be possessed. Their faces looked ultimately panicked and desperate as they tried their best to run away for their lives. Gradually, some of them who were possessed began to attack the others. They were using their best powers to kill their longtime partners. Cut limbs were everywhere. Blood splashed. That sea area was now a terrible scene in hell that people didn't want to look at twice. Shi Yang had planned to seize the chance to attack the others and make them pay a bloody price. However, he couldn't hold on to that thought. Dark energy returned to his head. He wasn't invisible anymore, so he hovered from a far distance and watched. Ahead of him was a sealed area because although there were so many dead people, there was no beam of aura to get out of the place. He didn't get any benefit from their deaths. From where he was hovering, he saw the members of the Ancient Monster clan and Black Demon clan sink into a desperate situation. He looked at Farlow, Telika, and Yerberg, the three with high ranks and noble positions. They were using their blood and power to urge their treasures and turn into 3 lightning bolts, trying to get rid of the place. He didn't know that Farlow, Telika, and Yerberg were the outstanding characters in their clans. They had received focus training and they had life protection secret treasures that Territory Ancestor Realm experts had refined for them. Farlow was squeezing a glass ball in her hand, which had many brilliant lights. Telika was holding a long spear with lightning drawings. His spear was wiggling like a snake. Yerberg was wearing sparkling gold armor. At this moment, his armor had some fine cracks. All of them were excellent warriors in their clans. With the life protection treasures bestowed from their precursors, they tried to make a way out of that evil sea area. They had fear in their eyes that they couldn't hide. They looked at their fellows slaughtering each other until death. Slowly, the dead warriors sank deeper to the seabed in that area. The desperate gleam on the faces of the dried corpses inside the green bubbles seemed to change quietly. Now, they looked mocking somehow. It was like they were brought back to life and releasing evil energy that affected those who dared to intrude just a moment ago. Shortly after, that sea area quieted down. Blood diluted in the sea water. The fellows that Farlow and Yerberg had brought here all sank into the seabed. It became silent again. Farlow, Telliker, and Yerberg were petrified. Seeing their members die tragically, they were extremely frightened. They didn't dare to move toward that area one more time. Shi Yang was around 100 meters away from them. They saw him but they didn't make a move. They just observed the sea area ahead. A long time after that, Farlow pulled herself together. The fear in her eyes hadn't dispersed yet. We can't go in there with our own power. We don't need to stay here and waste more efforts. We're going to return and report to the superior. Yerberg didn't respond. He just gave her a nod. He knew that Farlow was right. The dangers in this area weren't something that they could survive. If it wasn't because of the divine weapon they had received from the precursor in their clans, they would have had the same consequence. They would have become one of those corpses sinking over there. Yerberg turned around to look at Shi Yang, his face changed. It's you, somehow. Shi Yang looked calm as he proactively walked to them. Are you going to retreat? No one paid attention to him. Although Shi Yang had special power Upanishads, his realm was too low. He had only first sky of immortal realm and he wasn't from the 7 great clans. Farlow and the others were hurt. While they were worried and irritated the most, Shi Yang reappeared and approached them. He gave them strange thoughts. Was he seeking death? Are you all mute? Frowning, Shi Yang looked at Farlow and said, What did you sense in there? I know you have a strange power Upanishad. You must have perceived something. Hiding in the dark while the members of the Black Demon clan and the Ancient Monster clan were wounded, he had released the soul consciousness of the co-soul. He felt that familiar aura and the magical call from the deep area of the sea one more time. However, the intimidating soul consciousness that had killed the Black Demon clan and Ancient Monster clan members wasn't the familiar soul he had sensed. It made him more cautious and dare not to intrude the area. I'm curious. How can you hide where I can't find you? Besides space power Upanishad, what else have you cultivated? Farlow didn't answer but asked. I asked first, said Shi Yang. Farlow's rough face grew impatient and hot-tempered. What are you? You're at first sky of immortal realm only. You're not a member of the 7 great clans, either. Do you think you deserve to talk to me? My G didn't come with you here, asked Yerberg all of a sudden. Listening to them, Farlow and Telliker were bewildered. They turned to see Yerberg. This fella is called Shi Yang. He rode the high waves on Dragon Lizard Star. Yeah, you're right. He's the lucky guy with a wisp of a soul of an absolute beginning creature. I'm curious why my G hadn't refined you on the way. I know that because of Batum, my G wouldn't hesitate to pay any price to reach the territory ancestor realm. Well, as she didn't kill you, does she like you? Asked Yerberg in a low-pitched voice. Farlow and Telliker were startled. They looked both surprised and greedy. So, you guys want to refine me to take the absolute beginning creature's soul I got? Shi Yang felt ridiculous. My G failed. Do you think you can do that? My G failed. They were astounded. Farlow and Yerberg were at 3rd sky of immortal realm, but they weren't at the peak. Telliker had only 2nd sky of immortal realm cultivation base. Talking about credit or realms, they couldn't compete with my G. If my G failed, would they fail too? He was just a junior at 2nd sky of immortal realm. How could my G fail? If she didn't fail, why was this fellow still alive? All of them were so suspicious because of Shi Yang. They weren't so sure if he was saying the truth. Someone is coming. Shi Yang changed his face and turned to look in the direction behind him. Should be the members from your 7 great clans. It seems like everybody knows about the absolute beginning vestige. You are just a pioneer group. Well, the group with the worst luck. Yerberg, Telliker turned to look at Farlow. Farlow was skeptical and shook her head. I can't feel anything. I'm not sure if he is telling the truth. Chapter 1420, She's My Woman. Chapter 1420, She's my woman. Farlow cultivated mind power Upanishad, so her sensitivity was always better. When she said she didn't feel anything abnormal, Yerberg and Telika were disdainful. Apparently, they believed Farlow's assumption. Shi Yang didn't explain. He put more distance between him and the other three to prevent a possible dispute. Shi Yang discreetly moved. Before those people got here, Shi Yang didn't plan to say more. Shi Yang had used the soul consciousness with space power Upanishad to sense a group of warriors moving behind them. Although Farlow's mind power Upanishad was magical, her long-distance sensing wasn't strong enough. What should we do to him? Telika lowered his voice. The group of the Black Demon clan coming here had to bear a big loss. Only Telika and Farlow survived. At this moment, he was in a really bad mood. He wanted to vent it out. Whatever you want. I don't have any idea. Well, if you can kill him to take his soul, it's your luck. Yerberg shrugged, his eyes cold and sinister. He wanted to see Telika attack the other to measure Shi Yang's competence. I've tried, snorted Telika. Yerberg was surprised and felt ridiculous. So you didn't defeat him when you battled him earlier? Telika grimaced. Telika, come back to the sea surface and report the situation. I'm here to watch. We will do it when our clan's hotshots come, said Farlow all of a sudden. Why don't you do that yourself? Snorted Telika. I can, Farlow hissed. She didn't have any mild feature of a woman. She acted more like a rude man. If you aren't afraid of being killed by Yerberg, you can stay here. I'm going back. Why would I do that? Yerberg rubbed his nose. His face was as if he was being treated unfairly. Telika discolored as he suddenly remembered that Yerberg was here too. Moreover, he had third sky of Immortal Realm which was one level higher than his. He didn't want to stay anymore. This kid is a thorn in my eyes. I want to kill him before I leave. Up to you. Farlow didn't think it was a big matter. However, as soon as she finished talking, her face changed. No. It was the first time she was frightened. She turned to Shi Yang, her face baffled. Someone is coming. As soon as she said that, Telika and Yerberg were also fearful. They turned to observe Shi Yang in surprise. Although he was too far away from the coming people, he could sense them beforehand. He was more precise than Farlow. From this feature, they could tell that he wasn't ordinary at all. Telika wanted to kill Shi Yang, but now, he had to put this thought aside, frowning and hovering. 10 minutes later, a group of 6 warriors with exquisite, shining armor came. They moved like quiet spirits in the water. Their leader was a woman wearing a thick and complicated set of armor. The gold, bright yellow, and orange-red lines created patterns of the sun, flowers, and flames on her armor. Her armor covered her slender, straight thighs, her ample breasts, and her wheatish skin tone. She kept her shoulders, flawless abdomen, and half of her long legs covered. Following her were 5 men in dark armor. Their auras were calm and cold. Their eyes were brilliant with divine lights. Shi Yang was startled at a first glance as he mumbled, "Mysterious Sky Clan." The mysterious Sky Clan woman with sexy clothes looked around 30 years old. She had tender, lovely facial contours, her eyes twinkling. Peak of Immortal Realm. At first glance, Shi Yang could see her real realm. He became cautious. Ling Mai. Farlow was surprised when she saw who came. Her eyes flashed as she snorted. I didn't expect the mysterious Sky Clan to come here. And it's you, unexpectedly. It seems like you guys are interested in the absolute beginning vestige a lot. Farlow, Yerberg, Telika. The mysterious Sky Clan woman called Ling Mai gently nodded to the 3 and said their names. She looked nonchalant as she spoke relaxingly. Why are only you here? The other 3 kept silent with grimaces. Well, of course, they didn't come here with only these people. Unfortunately, 1 hour before you came, all were killed. Yeah, right in between those green bubbles. Shi Yang intervened, pouting at the area ahead of them and speaking indifferently. Shut up, bellowed Farlow and Telika. Shi Yang chuckled. With your realm and competences, you need more to shut me up. If the real experts of your clan came here, besides shutting my mouth, I would also stay as far away from here as I can. The hot woman of the mysterious Sky Clan wore a tender face like calm water. The corners of her mouth drew a strange smile. She looked interested when she assessed Shi Yang. Her eyes suddenly brightened when she pulled a stern face. "Are you Shi Yang?" Shi Yang was surprised. "Did Tu Shiqi and Yun tell you something about me?" "It's you." Ling Mai beamed honestly. "Those two precursors are heading to this Sea of Annihilation. They told me about you and they said that you could go to the Sea of Annihilation. I didn't expect you to come so early." Ling Mai pulled a stern face and introduced herself. "I am Ling Mai, the one who's in charge the Sea of Annihilation in the mysterious Sky Clan. If you meet any trouble, don't hesitate and just come see me. I'm sure I'll try my best to help you." Farlow, Yerberg, and Telika discolored in fright when they heard that. Now, when they turned to Shi Yang, they all had odd countenances. Why would he need to disturb your mysterious Sky Clan? However, at this moment, a charming voice came from a far distance. Afterward, a cold light zoomed over. Mai Ji came. Mai Ji wore a luxurious, long dress, showing her snow-white skin. Her face was charming and her soft voice could reach people's souls. Mai Ji was truly an innate treasure. As long as she appeared, Ling Mai's beauty became inferior. Her mature, attractive features made Yerberg and Telika aroused. They almost got a nosebleed. As soon as Mai Ji arrived, she didn't hesitate to approach Shi Yang and blame him. "Why did you have to get into the sea? Even if something happened, you should have told me first. Didn't you know that someone has sold you down the river?" Then, her cold eyes gazed at Yerberg as she said awkwardly, "Hey, you're here too? You always put it on your mouth that you had to repay my favor. Well, just a turn and you've sold me already. Yerberg, your deeds aren't bad at all." Yerber looked ashamed and bowed to her. The Devouring Clan and the Soul Clan had a big price. "You know what I sell, right?" "I couldn't help but sell the information." Mai Ji giggled and waved her hand elegantly. "I'm not going to blame you. Anyway, don't dream about getting more information from me. The relationship between us ends here." "Shi Yang, how are you related to her?" Ling Mai of the mysterious Sky Clan couldn't explain this. When she received the message from Tu Shiqi and Yun, Tu Shiqi had asked her to protect Shi Yang. Even if they had to become the Phantom Clan's enemy, they had to ensure Shi Yang's safety. Tu Shiqi also said that Mai Ji would try her best to hunt Shi Yang. She wanted to refine his soul to reach the territory ancestor realm. Lately, Ling Mai had paid attention. And today, seeing Shi Yang undersea, she was both happy and afraid. She had just decided to protect him and Mai Ji had shown up with some unknowingly clingy feelings towards Shi Yang. Ling Mai was puzzled. She began to think that Tu Shiqi was wrong. Shi Yang opened his mouth to explain. However, at this moment, a voluptuous body approached him. Under the firing gaze of Telika and Yerberg, Mai Ji wound her snow-white arm around him and leaned against his body. Her charming face was filled with lecherous gleams as she seduced him. Of course, it's the most intimate one. Shi Yang was surprised. He looked at Mai Ji at his chest awkwardly. He shifted his eyes to frown at Ling Mai in front of him. There was a flash in his eyes as he understood it. Mai Ji and Ling Mai didn't get along well. They were the leaders of the Phantom Clan and mysterious Sky Clan in the sea domain of Nihility. After a long time, these two women must have encountered each other a lot. Ling Mai had received news from Tu Shiqi to recruit Shi Yang. She had expressed their opinions and Mai Ji had overheard that. Perhaps she didn't want to show up early. Because of Ling Mai, she was forced to appear earlier to compete with Ling Mai. That's why she had to lean against him like this. A series of thoughts flashed in his head. Shi Yang smiled and then pulled Mai Ji to his chest, not trying to be polite. Feeling her soft body stiff, he grinned evilly and inwardly. However, he still held a stern face and said, "She's my woman." His statement was earth-shaking. Not only Ling Mai but Farlow, Telika, and Yerberg were also dumbstruck. They looked at Shi Yang as if he was an incredible monster. Was it true? Everybody knew that Batum had declared that Mai Ji would be his woman in this sea of annihilation. No one dared to claim her. Otherwise, Batum would absolutely hunt him down. Even the superiors of the Phantom clan had discreetly agreed. They were waiting for my G to yield. After Batum had reached the territory ancestor realm, they were going to announce this to the other clans. Today, a kid at First Sky of Immortal Realm had the guts to hug my G and claim her as his woman. Did he want to turn everything upside down? My G wore a stiff face for a moment. However, she resumed shortly and smiled like a flower. Right, this is my man, my G's real man. Damn you, kid. It's you who courts death. You dare to exploit me. Wait for Batum to mince you. She could feel Shiyang's big and rough hand squeeze and rub her butt cheeks. My G's body stiffened. She secretly gritted her white teeth and cursed Shiyang. My G, are you kidding? Ling Mai was surprised. Everybody knows that you and Batum being together is inevitable. If you do that, you will trouble Shiyang and yourself altogether. Are you sure? She turned to Shiyang and said solemnly, I guess you don't know the thing between her and Batum. Batum has dark energy. He's at the peak of Immortal Realm and he's just a step away from the Territory Ancestor Realm. He's the sort of man who would seek revenge for the slightest grudge. If he knows this, you will have to struggle a lot. The corners of Shiyang's mouth twitched slightly, but he was still calm and silent. He had prepared. After he found Audrey and located the territory entrance, they were going to return to desolate territory immediately. He didn't know if he would return to see Domain of Nihility again. Even if he did return, he wouldn't be at his current realm when that happened. If so, why would he be afraid of that Batum? Chapter 1421, The Ruins Under the Sea. Chapter 1421, The Ruins Under the Sea. Ling Mai looked at Shiyang deep in his eyes as she didn't know what he was thinking in his mind. Suddenly, she asked, What do you think about our mysterious Sky Clan? I consider Tu Shiqi and Ya Yun as precursors. I appreciate them a lot. Anyway, I don't plan to become the non-native officer of the mysterious Sky Clan. I'm sorry, said Shiyang. He had followed my G to Babel because he wanted to eliminate Ling Mai's idea. He knew what Ling Mai thought. From Tu Shiqi, Ling Mai knew his value. Just like Tu Shiqi, she hoped to recruit him to the mysterious Sky Clan so that he could become a strong non-native officer of the mysterious Sky Clan and work for them in the future. Tu Shiqi had discussed this with Shiyang and asked him to consider. He didn't want to join any force. I understand. Ling Mai nodded indifferently. I'll tell Tu Shiqi your decision. But I have to remind you something. There's something you shouldn't say rashly. Batum isn't a nice guy. He will kill you. Thank you for reminding me, said Shiyang honestly. Of course, he knew things between my G and Batum. He didn't plan to stay in the Sea of Annihilation for a long time. Unless Batum could break through to the Territory Ancestor realm soon, with his magical power Upanishads, Shiyang could run away if he couldn't resist. Ha ha, my G laughed gently and quietly moved from Shiyang to prevent him from further exploiting her. If he wants to join a force, of course, he will join our Phantom clan. Ling Mai, don't think about it. Ling Mai snorted and turned around to look at the area with the green bubbles. Ling Mai frowned. What happened? Farlow, Yerberg, and Telika didn't answer. When they recalled that moment, they became restless. Let me explain, Shiyang intervened one more time. Ling Mai and my G turned to him. This is what happened. Shiyang briefed them the situation. These three have excellent divine weapons. That's how they escaped. Otherwise, they would have suffered the same consequences. Pausing for a while, he turned to Farlow. There's an evil soul consciousness from deep under the sea. I think she knows clearly. You should ask her for more details. I don't know the situation. Farlow kept a cold face. The absolute beginning vestige is right under those green bubbles. If you want to search, go there. But you'd better be prepared. You don't want to encounter what we had experienced badly. Everybody quieted down. Is it really dangerous? Whispered my G. Shiyang's face was heavy. Not something normally dangerous. If you want to get in there, you should equip some treasures or power Upanishads that could stop the soul invasion. Otherwise, you shouldn't go there recklessly. As soon as he said that, my G's expression was also heavy. How could you get here? Farlow's team came here because they had the right direction. My G was sure that Shi Yang didn't know about the vestige thing. But now, he was here. My G couldn't reason why. Of course, Shi Yang wouldn't tell her that he had followed the call from deep under the sea to get here. He made an excuse. I just wanted to check around to see if I'm lucky. Then, I saw those sneaky people. As I didn't have anything to do, I secretly followed them here. He changed the topic, his face dark. How about you? How could you come here? I knew you came to the seabed. I was worried, so I went after you. I met Ling Mai's team along the way. I followed her until this area, said my G with a smile. They exchanged looks as they knew that they were hiding things from each other. However, they were wise enough not to ask for more. What to do now? Telika looked at Farlow. Should we retreat or wait for a while? Yerberg was alone here. He also hesitated because he knew that he couldn't do anything here. If he couldn't get through that area, waiting here was just a waste of his time. Shortly, Farlow, Telika, and Yerberg had made up their mind. They decided to leave and follow the old way to return. A strange change happened right at this moment. The dried corpses inside the green bubbles exploded all of a sudden. A kind of dark and bizarre energy expanded and sank deeper to the seabed. Shortly after, the vast area was no longer full of green bubbles. Yerberg was closest to that area. He moved directly. He didn't find any danger. With a shocked face, he immediately barged into the area and bent his body to observe the underneath. Countless green bubbles sank rapidly. The exploded corpses had become pure energy that fell like light dots. Those light dots were like stars in the sky. While they were falling, they had become magical absolute beginning symbols. It seemed like the green bubbles were the eye of some formation. While it was falling, somewhere deep into the seabed suddenly glowed in brilliant halos. Deep under the sea, a group of vague but grand buildings emerged. Everybody was bewildered. They looked at Yerberg and then observed underneath to see the vague lines of many buildings. At the same time, Shi Yang's mind was shaking hard. He could feel the urgent call from deep in the seabed. It was the unique whining call of the absolute beginning creatures. He had heard it from Hui. Today, that voice came directly into his sea of consciousness. That voice was too vague to get the message. Shi Yang guessed that someone wanted him to go to the seabed. He discolored and hesitated for the first time. He didn't know what was down there. If it was an absolute beginning creature, no one here could be able to resist. Even if it was a weak absolute beginning creature, still, no one here would be able to resist its attack. From the tragic death of those members of the ancient monster clan and black demon clan, Shi Yang was sure that if there was an absolute beginning creature, it didn't have any good intention. At his realm, if the absolute beginning creature aimed at him, he would be killed faster. Even if he had space power Upanishad, he couldn't save himself. Should he go there? Come here. What are you waiting for? My G waved at him and looked thrilled. The absolute beginning vestige is down there. I saw a grand palace. Although it's vague, I'm sure it's colossal. Shi Yang pondered and gritted his teeth as he decided to go and check. Once things went wrong, he would retreat immediately. Although he thought so, he didn't dare to go directly. He began to arrange something. The sea water around him foamed and created a bubble. Shi Yang used his space power Upanishad to check for a while. When he confirmed he could still teleport here, he exhaled in relief. Then, he moved toward my G. The bloody scene was now calm. People lingered there for a while. Eventually, they couldn't help but start to sink. The water pressure suddenly increased. Their light protection was pressed and got deformed. Gradually, Shi Yang felt suffocated. While lowering to the seabed, it felt like he had a mountain on his back pressing on his bones, his entire body ached. He turned to my G. My G was fine. The light cave protecting her body was pressed toward her perfect body, but it wasn't affected too much. Pondering for a while, he was about to urge the power of his blood to transform. Come here. Go with me. It'll be fine for a while, said my G. Shi Yang was bewildered. He smiled and didn't deny her offer. He flew toward her and the radiant, colorful light cage parted to let him in. It also swelled up to make more room. The two of them squeezed in the egg-like light protection, their shoulders touching. Shi Yang could take in the charming fragrance of her body, and he could feel her voluptuous body's heat. "You know Batum?" asked Mai Ji. Shi Yang was surprised and shook his head. "No, I don't." "Don't lie to me," Mai Ji hissed through her gritted teeth. "When Ling Mai mentioned Batum, you didn't look surprised. I'm sure you know him from Yu Lian. I'm curious. If you know Batum's realm, why did you tease me? You're not afraid of death." "If I can make you mine, it's worth my death," Shi Yang shrugged. "You know that's impossible," Mai Ji giggled. The aura on her body gradually became cold. It meant that she was still cold as usual. "Well, you proactively leaned against me. I think no normal man can resist that. If I refused, how embarrassed would you be?" Shi Yang was calm and said, "I don't care who Batum is. Anyway, after I found Audrey, I will leave the Sea of Annihilation and the Sea Domain of Nihility. Even if Batum is invincible, how can he trouble me?" "You want to leave? To desolate territory?" Mai Ji suddenly had a gleam of sadness in her heart. "I've not done with you yet and you say you're leaving? Done." Shi Yang pulled a cold face and turned to her. He didn't try to be polite. "Perhaps you've forgotten the lessons. But you should know that with your current condition, you still need a little more to trouble me. It's true that I'm not fully recovered. Anyway, do you think that I don't have any solution?" Mai Ji was enraged. Shi Yang snorted and didn't quarrel with her. He pulled himself together to observe the underneath. A massive light dome like an arch of heaven slowly emerged. The area under that dome was grand and imposing like an ancient ruin. As the light dome was protecting them, the ruins weren't soaked in seawater. The light dome had so many bloodlines, which were like connected ditches. A pungent smell invaded their nostrils. Shi Yang frowned and observed. He was startled when he found it. "Those bloodlines are bloody streaks of the warriors who were killed recently. It's some sort of blood sacrifice. It requires blood to activate the light dome." "You mean we can get in there?" The green bubbles disappeared because of those who were killed earlier. Their blood was enough to activate this thing? Mai Ji caught the keywords. Shi Yang nodded. "How did you know that?" Mai Ji was so surprised. "Intuition," said Shi Yang. It was actually his intuition. Looking at the light dome as big as the arch of the sky and the ancient buildings that were now in ruins, Shi Yang had a familiar feeling. Shi Yang had glanced at the blood streaks on the light dome and somehow, he knew that some sort of blood sacrifice was needed to activate that thing. This feeling was strange, but Shi Yang thought it was true. Chapter 1422, Penetrate. Chapter 1422, Penetrate. Shi Yang and Mai Ji continued to sink deeper. "This light dome looks really vast. This ruin is really colossal. It's so amazing." Mai Ji frowned and observed the area beneath through her light cage. She turned to Shi Yang. "Do you feel better now?" Shi Yang smiled. "The water pressure is so formidable. You've been in this Sea of Annihilation for many years. You must have gone down here several times. Why didn't you find this vestige? I've explained it to you. The Sea of Annihilation can be as vast as an entire territory. I can't endure the pressure at the deepest area. It's true that I often move around undersea and I found some strange areas. But it's the first time I saw such colossal ruins that are like this." Mai Ji pulled herself together and glanced at Ling Mai. "I don't get along with that woman. We have competed many times in this Sea of Annihilation. I hope you don't establish any relationship with her." "What kind of relationship can I establish with her?" Shi Yang felt funny. "You better not. Ling Mai is the expert in charge of the Sea of Annihilation of the mysterious Sky Clan. We've been competing for a long time, but I can hardly defeat her. This time, I have to defeat her once." Mai Ji was resolute. While talking, her milky breasts shook and made enchanting, seducing waves. Shi Yang's eyes became hot as he grinned. His line of sight fell on the cleavage between her breasts. "I'm some kind of key point in the battle between you guys." "Yes," Mai Ji didn't deny. She admitted naturally. Since we were in Dragon Lizard Star, Tu Shiqi and Ya Yun have tried to create a good relationship with you. I think they know you have dark energy too, right? Shi Yang nodded. I knew it. If you didn't have dark energy, which ensures your breakthrough to the territory ancestor realm later, how could they appreciate you that much? Ling Mai is the same. She expects to recruit you to be the native officer of the mysterious Sky Clan. That's how they will try to get one more territory ancestor realm expert. Mai Ji sighed sadly. To the 7 great clans, competing for experts is crucial, and recruiting the territory ancestor realm experts is the fiercest competition. A territory ancestor realm expert can even change the general competence of one of the 7 clans. My clan didn't care about Batum's bad reputation and they are willing to sacrifice me to recruit him. It's because he'll definitely enter the territory ancestor realm. Then why don't you sacrifice yourself and marry Batum to increase your Phantom clan's competences? Shi Yang didn't smile and looked at her nonchalantly. You're so dedicated to the Phantom clan. For the clan's welfare, it is logical for you to give yourself up to it, right? You want me to marry Batum? Mai Ji suddenly quieted down. After a long moment, she asked with a cold face. It has nothing to do with me. My feelings can't affect you. I'm just curious, Shi Yang said calmly. You don't want it. It's obvious. Why don't you dare to violate your clan's rule? Mai Ji's face was bitter. She shook her head and said in agony, I can't turn my back to my clan. Also, I don't dare to lose my clan's protection. Why? Asked Shi Yang. What I got today is all because of my clan. My family is there. Also, I've done many things for my clan lately. I've killed many people. They want my life. As I'm with my clan, they don't dare to attack me. If I leave the Phantom clan, I can't live in peace, sighed Mai Ji. If Batum breaks through to the territory ancestor realm fast, what will you do when he asks your clan to fulfill the promise? Asked Shi Yang. I don't know. I really don't know and I don't dare to think too much about it. Mai Ji's charming face was filled with puzzlement. She herself didn't have an answer. Shi Yang didn't ask further. They had landed above the light curtain. The light curtain was like an arch of a sky covering the ruins beneath and preventing the sea water from getting through. This light curtain had a lot of magical absolute beginning tadpole symbols, which were moving and wiggling as if they had a life and consciousness. The blood streaks scattered here and there on the light curtain. Shi Yang focused and found that he couldn't see where the light curtain ended. 5 colors waves rippled from the light curtain and expanded toward Shi Yang. He was a little shocked. So many waves swarmed toward him and made him restless. He couldn't help but get out of Mai Ji's light protection. While Mai Ji was still frightened, he smiled comfortably as the water pressure seemed to vanish into thin air. He quietly watched here and there. Except for him, the others were all acting gingerly. They looked as if they were facing great enemies. Still, they hovered far away from those ripples. Seeing the waves hit Shi Yang but still be comfortable, he even smiled and the others relaxed their tense nerves. A man in black armor from the mysterious Sky Clan standing by Ling Mai deliberately reached out and caught a coming, purple wave. He screeched painfully. Everybody looked at him in fear. They saw the flesh on his arm melt and leave only a piece of white bone. The light purple wave swarmed over and covered him entirely. Shortly after, he was no longer breathing because he was now a white skeleton falling into the bright light curtain. His frame became bone dust and blended with the seawater, washing away. Ling Mai couldn't help but scream ear-piercingly, "Move! All of you! Get away!" Except for Shi Yang, the others didn't need her to remind them. All retreated away as if they saw a ghost in daylight. They were all pale as they looked at those colorful waves. All of them looked aghast. Now, only Shi Yang stood there inside the ripples. He didn't even look a bit troubled. Farlo, Telika, Ling Mai, Yerberg, and Mai Ji stiffened. They looked at him as if they were watching a monster. Mai Ji was bewildered for a while and then said, "Shi Yang, why are you still okay?" Shi Yang had seen the brutal accident happen to that member of the mysterious Sky Clan. He knew why people were skeptical, but he didn't explain. Grinning, he immediately plunged through the light curtain. Magically, The light curtain seemed to make a slit for Shi Yang to go through. On the light curtain, the waves rippled and expanded. Ling Mai and Mai Ji were so wary of them. They couldn't help but retreat, trying to use their power Upanishad to break and prevent the terrible attack from the colorful waves. Mai Ji, you know him well. Do you know what he did to get through the danger? Embark screamed. Mai Ji frowned. I just asked, but he didn't answer. I'm like you guys. I don't know anything. What makes him different from the rest of us? Asked Farlow of the Black Demon clan. I heard that this man has a wisp of the soul of an absolute beginning creature. It's what I got. Embark initially told the others what he knew. He understands the powers of the dark energy. Hesitating for a while, Ling Mai told the piece of information she had. As everybody wanted to intrude the ruins beneath, they had to find a solution to deal with those ripples. Thus, Ling Mai didn't want to conceal anything. She also wanted to find a solution. Fused with a wisp of the absolute beginning creature's soul? A warrior with dark energy? Farlow looked shocked. His at just first sky of immortal realm. Mind-blowing, right? Mai Ji parted her lips into a smile. It's true. When I found that out, I was shaken too. Anyway, there are more shocking things. He got dark energy when he was at incipient God realm, anyway. Have you ever heard about anyone at incipient God realm get dark energy? Listening to her, Ling Mai shivered. Finally, she knew why Tu Shiqi had sent her such a strange message. Tu Shiqi had told her to try her best to recruit Shi Yang. Even if she couldn't make Shi Yang the non-native officer of the mysterious Sky Clan, she had to be able to create a good relationship with him. She should not offend him and she should offer help whenever she could. After receiving the news, Ling Mai was bewildered. She thought that Tu Shiqi and his wife just made a fuss over something trivial. Today, she knew how Tu Shiqi and his wife could stand tall and see far. Mai Ji and the others were bound outside. Under the light curtain, Shi Yang slowly descended. It was like he had gotten through a layer of clouds to enter a whole new world. Everywhere in this world was a ruin. Even though they were ruins, they stood as tall and grand as a mountain. They were conical buildings made of an unknown stone material. Everything in his vision was the broken ancient buildings. A strange energy wandered around his body and got into his sea of consciousness. That energy came from the ripples. The reason why he wasn't hurt was because those ripples were actually dark energy. As his body was tamed with dark energy, he could absorb it. Dark energy was a sort of negative energy. It was very different from other kinds of common energy. However, Shi Yang's body wasn't affected. He lifted his head to see Ling Mai, Mai Ji, and the others fluttered as he grinned. Concentrating, he released his co-soul and sensed the aura or something that was calling him. Shortly after, he got his direction. Shi Yang didn't mind the others who were very astounded on the other side of the light curtain, heading toward an area. He was slow at first. Gradually, he accelerated. Deep undersea, Audrey was heading toward the vestige. Innumerable souls covered her like a big black cloak. Why do you suddenly want to go deep undersea? Ming Hong turned into a ghostly shadow and floated on her should. He was using power to make departed spirits and brutal souls cover her, saving her from the formidable water pressure. A voice is calling me constantly, said Audrey. A voice. Ming Hong was panicked. Perhaps it's related to some absolute beginning creature. Audrey didn't conceal it. You know, I've fused with the origin of the God-blessed mainland. Yeah, it's like fusing with a part of desolate. Ming Hong was excited when he heard Audrey said that. It should be something mysterious from the absolute beginning era. I think so, Audrey chuckled. Shortly after, Audrey had reached the light curtain with countless radiant ripples. With a strange light flaring in her eyes, she released her soul consciousness to check around. Sizzle. Sizzle. Her soul consciousness melted when it touched the waves. What a powerful defense. Ming Hong screamed in surprise. Hey! All of a sudden, a voice call from afar. A silhouette dashed rapidly and reached Audrey in almost a blink of an eye. Oh, you! It's you! Audrey and Mai Ji screamed in astonishment. Chapter 1423 Meet Old Friends. Chapter 1423, Meet Old Friends. Dozens of thousands of grey souls hovered around Audrey like innumerable clusters of clouds. It looked like she was wearing a long fishtail dress with souls like waves on the hem and scales on the body of her dress. Each of those souls emitted a dangerous aura. The 7 brutal souls had resized and turned into precious armor on her shoulders, waist, and back. If one didn't look carefully, he couldn't recognize them. Especially at her left shoulder, Ming Hong was just as big as a small palm. He crouched so people thought he was just a small flower decorating her dress. However, at first glance, Mai Ji knew what it was. After screaming, Mai Ji had strange light in her eyes. She immediately lowered her voice and said in astonishment, Sing had refined dozens of thousands of souls and even 7 brutal souls for several thousand years. You got them all? Mai Ji discolored before Audrey answered because she suddenly recognized another possibility. She acted as if she was facing the archenemy. Ice began to appear on her body. You're Sing, aren't you? She hissed and felt panic-stricken. Audrey had only incipient God realm cultivation base. She was the most suitable object for Sing to possess. With dozens of souls gathering around her, Sing could have robbed Audrey's soul. I'm not him. Audrey was surprised, but she acted fast. She turned to look at Ming Hong and felt lucky. Without Ming Hong, a precursor in her clan at incipient God realm, even if she could use all of her power, she couldn't absorb dozens of thousands of souls that Sing had spent thousands of years to tame and refine. She wouldn't have had such a marvelous encounter. Prove it, Mai Ji was cautious. She doesn't need to do that, Ming Hong snorted. His small body was swelling like a balloon. Shortly after, he became more than 100 meters tall and hovered like a demogon above Audrey's head. This woman is hurt badly. She hasn't recovered yet. The 6 brutal souls and I can deal with her or even kill her. Ming Hong's voice arose in Audrey's head and told her his competence. Of course, Mai Ji couldn't hear him. Anyway, seeing Ming Hong transform, she knew that he didn't mean good. Her thoughts flickered and she reacted. You thought that I killed Shi Yang and refined the absolute beginning's soul in his soul? I don't think so, Audrey shook her head. You're powerful, but it's not easy to deal with Shi Yang. Anyway, I don't sense his aura on you. Thus, he must be still alive. You aren't Sing, Mai Ji was surprised. From Audrey's tone, she could guess her real identity. Pondering, she sighed. You're right. I can't refine that rascal. He's right down there. He asked me to find you. Underneath. Yeah, right in the ruins under the light curtain. Only he could get through it. We are stopped here. See those ripples? They're too fatal. We haven't had a solution to dissolve it yet. While they were talking, Ling Mai, Farlow, and Yerberg were using their powers and secret weapons to attack the light protection. The cold blue light stabbed the light dome. Hundreds of small boxes moved like the fish, arraying a formation. Then, all the boxes opened. Thunder reverberated grumblingly. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder roared and sounded like a massive hammer pounding on the light dome. The fatal ripples exploded and created a hole. Teleka nodded, but he actually felt painful inwardly. Lightning flashed. Then, so many lightning balls emerged from the incipient extent above his head before he retrieved the boxes. It was a secret treasure that the territory ancestor realm precursor in his clan had awarded him when he had broken through to the immortal realm. It was so strong, but he couldn't use it continuously. It was his life protection treasure, anyway. While trapped in those green bubbles, he had used this treasure to escape. He had used it once. And today, to eliminate the dangerous waves, he had to use it again. He successfully created a crack on the light dome. As soon as the crack appeared, Teleka hadn't reacted yet when Yerberg grinned and plunged through the crack first. The black-armored men of the mysterious Sky Clan behind Ling Mai also wanted to jump into the ruins. Ling Mai rose one hand to stop them and said earnestly, "Don't rush. Let him go first to check." They halted and appraised their leader for being cautious. They knew that this area was so strange and malicious. That's why their leader had to be ginger. They then watched Yerberg. Yerberg got through the crack smoothly. Nothing dangerous happened to him. Go. Go. Now. Ling Mai's eyes brightened. Her hot body moved like a flame and dashed faster than Farlo, storming toward the seabed. Farlo and the members of the mysterious Sky Clan followed her closely through the crack, one after another. We should get in there first. We'll talk about it later. While Mai Ji was talking to Audrey, she still paid attention to the others. Seeing Yerberg worm through the crack, she knew that they had made some progress. She talked to Audrey and then turned into an icy light, shooting toward the crack. Audrey didn't say much. She hurried to follow Mai Ji. Shadows like arrows got through the crack to enter the world under the light dome. Several seconds after Audrey disappeared, the crack closed. The ripples that had just exploded flooded over and fixed the crack. The light dome closed one more time. Dash! Following the call in his soul, Shi Yang was moving through the vast ruins on the seabed. He glided above the grand, colossal buildings, which looked as small as the rocks. The world inside the light dome was even wider than an entire life star. Shi Yang's released soul consciousness reported to him a vast area, which seemed to not have borders. The call in his soul sounded pretty close. However, when he was pursuing it, it turned to be a great distance. A wisp of soul consciousness was sent to the heavenly fantasy star compass. Checking the time measurement, he was surprised. After entering the light curtain, he had continuously flown without a single second of resting. With the speed of a warrior with space power Upanishad like him, he had flown for half a month. After half a month flying crazily without a moment for rest, he could get through half of the entire agate star area. However, he hadn't reached the location of the call, which sounded within a reach in his mind. The world under the light dome was indeed immensely vast. He had spent his efforts traveling for 15 days. He didn't have time to observe the colossal buildings underneath. Also, as he hadn't noticed those ancient ruins, he didn't know they were built in many strange shapes: an egg, a cone, a tower, and something bizarre. They were really different. Sometimes, something shimmered deep in those ruins. It seemed like there was a cold metal piece there. In a short glimpse when he glided over, he could catch their light. Shi Yang didn't mind them much. Time flew as fast as the shutter. 5 days passed like a blink of an eye. Shi Yang halted and looked ahead as he couldn't subside his surprised countenance. A massive building stood like a soul altar with hundreds of floors. Those floors stacked up and created a building like a 10,000-meter high mountain. This ancient building had countless windows and each of them was large, though. Also, surprisingly, it was well preserved. There was no discernible damage. The archaic soul altar-like building was shimmering in a metal gold light. Countless magical tadpole symbols were like billions of fish swimming on the building unceasingly. However, at a closer look, even though there were billions of symbols, all of them were the same. They were an unknown, absolute beginning word. Billions of identical symbols were moving around the walls of the massive, mountain-like building. That building looked like a huge fortress that reached the sky. While the symbols were moving, they lit up the entire building and glowed in a cold halo that could threaten the souls. Shi Yang looked at the building from a far distance. He shivered, his eyes strange. The energy that fluctuated the call came from those billions of symbols. While they were swimming around, the call ran directly into his sea of consciousness. An archaic sound that was replaying endlessly shook his co-soul on the tier of heaven flames. This vibrant call had burst his heaven flames. Thud, thud. 2 sounds of the rock being lifted arose from the ruins beside the ancient building, but they weren't really loud. Shi Yang was sensitive enough to check it. Discoloring, he pulled himself to observe the area, which was relatively close to him. The 2 persons that shouldn't be here emerged from the pile of rocks. They lifted their heads and screamed in fear, Shi Yang, God Lord Brian, Ming Hao. Shi Yang was so frightened that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Brian the chief of the God Clan and Ming Hao the sole control chief of the bloodthirsty force. Hui had used its supernatural power to teleport them away. And now, they emerged from the piles of rocks under this ancient building. It was unimaginable. Why are you here? Why are you 2 here? Shi Yang, the God Lord, and Ming Hao had screamed at the same time. They were so dumbstruck and they felt that this was really weird. We've been trapped here all the time. Ming Hao pondered for a few seconds. He stood on the rocks, still in his soul form. While he was talking, he lifted his head to look at the colossal building with countless swimming absolute beginning symbols. He said with respect, "We weren't here at first. Brian had received a call, so we tracked it down and came here. We want to solve this riddle. Anyway, after dozens of years, we couldn't figure out anything." "You also got the soul call?" Shi Yang was baffled. Brian the God Lord was sitting cross-legged. He glanced at Shi Yang, his eyes strange. "It turns out you came here because of the call too. Perhaps it's because the memory I got from fusing with Desolate wasn't enough to decode this mystery. Perhaps, after I kill you and get your soul, I can get into the ancient building." He got up immediately. "Ming Hao, do you want to get trapped here forever or get out of here? If you want to leave, don't stop me from killing this kid. I want his co-soul. You can have his host soul and his devouring power Upanishad. What do you think?" Chapter 1424, I don't dare to make that step. Chapter 1424, I don't dare to make that step, _. The God Lord Brian stood up. His eyes had the light of the sun, moon, and the stars, his body radiating brilliant lights. He looked like a light angel. He turned to Ming Hao, his face nonchalant. "You and I've been trapped here for so many years. Our territory is at its most critical time. Maybe Hui is invading us. If you don't want to see only a blank void when we go home, and if you don't want to see all the races killed, you know what to choose." Pausing for a while, Brian took a deep breath. "There's something you know already. If our territory is destroyed and if Hui killed Desolate, all the creatures that Desolate has created and all the souls that were born in Desolate territory would perish in just a blink. You and I can never escape the bind of fate. Unless we can reach the immortal realm soon, there's another way to survive, perhaps." The archaic building was emitting cold light. Ming Hao was just as big as an ant on the rock compared to the colossal building. He frowned and contemplated. Shi Yang knew that Ming Hao was hesitant. He was considering the God Lord's suggestion. Being trapped for dozens of years, Ming Hao knew that the complete ancient building would be the key for them to leave this place. Brian the God Lord had the origin of the ancient God continent, which was also a wisp of Desolate's soul. As he came here following the call, it would be the key to unlock this area. The God Lord's suggestion was tempting. Brian wanted Shi Yang's co-soul and he was willing to give up the host soul with the marvelous devouring power Upanishad, which helped him receive Bloodthirst's inheritance. It was a lie if he said he wasn't tempted. However, Ming Hao still hesitated. Shi Yang was the heir that Bloodthirsty had chosen. He was the new master of this generation. He also had the origin of the ancient continent. He had qualifications to decode the mysteries of this ancient building too. Joining hands with Shi Yang to kill the God Lord and let him discover the building was another option. However, this option was going to be tough. He knew how powerful the God Lord was. He had fought against the God Lord for many years in this area. He knew him well. Even if he got Shi Yang on his side now, he wasn't so sure about the success rate. He hesitated and switched his line of sight from the God Lord to Shi Yang. Suddenly, his face stiffened as he pried, "Immortal realm?" Dozens of years passed since Hui had thrown them here, but it had not been 100 years yet. Shi Yang had advanced a big step to the immortal realm. Ming Hao was astounded, indeed. The God Lord also found this. He discolored slightly. "As you can break through to the immortal realm in just a short time, if I don't kill you now, I won't get a chance later." He then turned to Ming Hao. "It's my chance. This is also your chance. If you let it go, you will have to serve him for the rest of your life. The same thing happened 10,000 years ago. You had to serve Bloodthirsty and you will have to serve him. Ming Hao, I understand you. I know who you are. What makes you hesitant?" "Ming Hao, I've met Ming Hong. He's alive. He has been in the sea domain of nihility all the time. And now, he has fused with Audrey," said Shi Yang all of a sudden. Ming Hao was shaken. He's still alive. "Ming Hao, kill him. When you get his soul, you can search through his memories," said the God Lord coldly. "Is it really hard to leave this place?" If so, how could I come here easily, said Shiyang. Ming Hao lifted his head and looked at Shiyang. Didn't Hui send you here? This time, the God Lord was also surprised. I came here from the Sea of Annihilation through the light curtain. Above us is the Sea of Annihilation, the most lively and bustling area of the sea domain of nihility with hundreds of races, said Shiyang calmly. Ming Hao and the God Lord's eyes brightened. Do you know the location of the entrance to our territory? Shiyang was moved. Of course, yes. Ming Hao looked at the massive building behind him and the light curtain above their heads. If we can get out of this place, I can find the territory entrance to go back. If you can get in here, you can get out too. Anyway, the two of us have tried. No matter what we do, we can't break the light curtain above. Also, the key to opening the light curtain is possibly in there. He pointed at the ancient building in front of them. What does it say? It's an absolute beginning word. What does it mean? Asked Shiyang. Ask him, frowned Ming Hao. Shiyang turned to the God Lord. You've fused with the heaven flame more than me. I've traveled through the sea domain of nihility. I know one thing. If you can fuse all the heaven flames, you can finally open the soul of the absolute beginning creature and get to know the secret of the old times. You can understand the absolute beginning languages and you can comprehend dark energy too. If all the heaven flames are merged into one, I can learn dark energy. Brian interrupted him excitedly. He suddenly shouted, Who told you that? The experts of the 7 great clans in the sea domain of nihility. They all agree with that. Some know that I have a wisp of the soul of an absolute beginning creature, so they've chased after me. They want to take my soul to break through the territory ancestor realm, explained Shiyang. Territory ancestor realm? Ming Hao and the God Lord looked at each other. After the immortal realm, it's the territory ancestor realm. Bloodthirsty should be a territory ancestor expert. Dark energy is the key to break through. Shiyang was surprised that the 2 supreme experts in desolate territory, the highest existences, didn't know about this realm. Now, he knew how isolated the desolate territory was and how far it had drifted away from sea domain of nihility. I've been dedicatedly studying bloodthirstis remains for 10,000 years. I had never thought about fusing the heaven flame completely. I was steered incorrectly from the start. It turns out that the correct way was right inside me. It's not fun at all. Brian didn't know if he should smile or cry. His face became strange. I've been to the sea domain of nihility for many years, but I haven't met any creature. I thought that the sea domain of nihility was really a place of nothing. Why could you meet a lot of people? Ming Hao was skeptical. Shiyang couldn't explain that. He didn't know that Ming Hong had the answer they needed, either. The route those precursors had taken was derived from the center of the sea domain of nihility to somewhere remote and unknown. Of course, they couldn't meet any high-level, free creatures in this vast sea of stars. I don't know. When you meet Ming Hong, you can ask him, Shiyang shook his head. I'm still one step away from fusing all the heaven flames. Recently, I've always restrained myself not to make that step. The God Lord looked at the building with the unknown symbols, his face reluctant. What are you afraid of? Asked Shiyang. As you've said, after I've completely fused with the heaven flames, I can trigger the memory of the soul to understand dark energy. At my realm, I can reach the territory ancestor realm successfully. I can understand the absolute beginning languages too. Anyway, I'm not sure if I will still be me if that happens. What do you mean? Ming Hao changed his visage. Is it what it has been waiting for the whole time? For me to finally fuse with its soul completely? Will I become part of it and lose myself completely? When that happens, who can tell if I will be just a part of its soul and its soul will swallow me completely? It has been several years and I still don't have the guts to make that step. I'm hesitant because of this, the God Lord whispered. Ming Hao knitted his brows. Shiyang looked pensive. He understood the God Lord's concerns. In fact, what the God Lord was concerned about was also his issue. He was worried that one day, when the co-soul finally fused all the heaven flames, he would lose himself instantly. The origin of Grace Mainland would replace him. However, He didn't have deep thoughts like the God Lord. I want to ask you. How many souls do you have? Asked Shi Yang. Of course, only one. The God Lord replied and then said, I know you have 2 souls. You're not like us. The devouring power Upanishad that you have is too evil. You're Desolate's archenemy. If you hadn't had the co-soul, your soul would have been swallowed by the origin of Grace Mainland. The God Lord's eyes brightened. His heart beat faster when he thought about something. He knew what Shi Yang was going to say next. Indeed. Shi Yang smiled straightforwardly. Then why do you want to kill me? Even if you kill me to get my soul, you still have only one soul. You will still be afraid because you don't know what will happen when you stimulate the soul with the origin. You don't know if you will be replaced or not. You're scared. But I'm not. I have 2 souls. I have more options than you. Even if it happens as you say, I will at most lose my co-soul and that won't kill me. Ming Hao understood. He turned to the God Lord and said, if you are afraid, we can let him try it first. Let him fuse with the heaven flames and see what will happen. We don't know how long it will take until he completely fuses all the heaven flames. I've been waiting for 10,000 years, snorted the God Lord. I still have 2 flows of heaven flames to fuse. I think it won't take up to 1 billion years, grinned Shi Yang. The God Lord kept silent. After a long time, he sat back on his pile of rocks. Maybe I should wait longer. He was still afraid. He was afraid that he would be replaced by the ancient god continent's origin after he had merged all the heaven flames. A long, long time ago, Bloodthirsty's last words had told him that he was just a pawn of Desolate. He was just a pawn to kill Bloodthirsty. He could feel Desolate's power every minute in his territory. Because he was aware of Desolate's existence. He knew how terrible it was. Thus, he was scared. Also, he had spent 10,000 years studying Bloodthirsty's remains. Headed this as he wanted to learn dark energy. He didn't dare to make the final step. From some aspect, he thought Bloodthirsty was right, so what he said had affected him for 10,000 years. Of course, if he fused with the last heaven flame to perceive dark energy and reach the territory ancestor realm, but was still himself and not replaced by the origin of the ancient god continent, there would be nothing to discuss. If that happened, Bloodthirsty's last words were just a lie to harm him. That expert had arranged him another match that had held him back for 10,000 years, making him stuck at the peak of immortal realm. The God Lord couldn't guess what would happen. He had to wait until Shi Yang had fused the heaven flame to guess and to know Bloodthirsty's real intentions. Chapter 1425 It is Life. Chapter 1425 It is Life. Go there and see if you can break the light curtain. While Brian the God Lord was sinking in his thoughts, Ming Hao suggested to Shi Yang to soar up into the sky. Shi Yang nodded and didn't think too much about it. He floated up and flew to the light dome that looked like the sky. After a while, he was hovering right below the light curtain. Observing the ground, he found ruins everywhere. Only the building where Ming Hao and the God Lord were in was intact. Turning into a starlight jet, he tried to pierce through the light curtain. Boom! It was like he had barged into an invisible rubber wall. His body was forced backward. He urged dark energy, hiding his body and storming forward again. Boom! He bounced back again. His body ached so hard that he thought his frame would break. Wincing, he frowned and assessed the light curtain. He found that the ripples were just outside. They didn't exist inside. The light curtain had stopped them. The sea water above the light curtain rolled and seethed. It looked like Shi Yang's impact had created that. A starlight saber stabbed the light curtain. Crack! The saber exploded and turned into a sprinkle of starlight dots. The light curtain stayed the same. He frowned and tried the sharp space saber this time. However, an unknown force had stimulated his energy and exploded it before he could form a space saber. After trying many times, Shi Yang gradually lost hope. His face grew heavy. It's strange. It's like a one-way barrier. I've tried all my tricks but I can't get through the light curtain. He returned to Ming Hao and Brian, his face strange. I guess you've tried everything you can in the dozens of years you were trapped here, right? Ming Hao and Brian grimaced when they heard him. They looked at the building covered with absolute beginning symbols and said nothing. After a while, Brian said coldly, "It seems like it's the key. We were right. If only we can explore this ancient building, we will find a way to leave." Ming Hao nodded to him as he also agreed with his conclusion. The ruins under the light curtain. As soon as Audrey landed, she didn't say anything but flew toward the direction of the call. It was also where Shi Yang was. Mai Ji kept an eye on her. Seeing Audrey have a target, she had an idea to follow her silently. Ling Mai, Farlo, and Yerberg landed in the middle of the ruins. They observed and became bewildered upon seeing the massive vestige. This place looks like an ancient city. Something happened and it became ruins. Yerberg walked around and found nothing precious. It's really massive. We should disperse. Perhaps we will find something. What do you think? Farlo and Ling Mai wore cold faces. Before they found something, they didn't want to start a dispute. They scattered and raked through the ruins with the hope of finding something. After an unknown time, a grey silhouette descended from the sky and landed by Farlo and Telika. He was extremely ugly and had a fat body like a meatball. His face had so many lumps like toad skin. Briefly speaking, he looked nauseating. This old, disgusting man had a pair of narrow eyes, which were sparkling a sinister light. He was holding a rhombus staff inlaid with a lot of precious gems. He landed, lifted his head, and said, "You can come now. There's no problem. Remember what you've promised me." As soon as he finished, Tate of the Soul clan laughed and slowly landed, followed by several members of his clan. An elderly woman from the Devouring clan with an erosive aura came after Tate. Her deep, turquoise eyes had a strange light as they were raking around like a venomous snake. Ah! Farlo and Telika discolored in fear. They panicked and looked at those who had just arrived. They had been in this vast vestige for several days without finding anything. Today, when they saw someone they knew, they were discreetly frightened. "Greetings, Precursor Batum." After being astonished for a while, Telika smiled and greeted the ugly fat old man. Batum was like a round ball that was even more loathsome than a toad. He rolled his eyes at Telika and grinned, "Black Demon Clan. You're fast. How are you doing? Did you find anything?" While talking, his eyes scanned Telika and Farlo as if he would rob them when he found something. Telika and Farlo were chilled. Instinctively, they moved backward. Telika said, "Nothing. There are only ruins here. We haven't found anything valuable." He rose his hands and continued, "Before we came here, we asked our precursor for permission. He knows where we are. Precursor, don't trouble us." "How do you know I would trouble you guys?" Batum curled his lips, his face malicious and dark. "My G is here too," said Farlo all of a sudden. It was a good topic to shift Batum's focus. His narrow eyes brightened and he laughed vulgarly. "My woman is here. Excellent. I've been trying to find her several times. She wasn't home. It turns out that she came to this place after she returned to the Sea of Annihilation. My woman is very active. She has good intelligence too." "Don't waste our time," snorted the old woman of the Devouring clan. She impatiently rolled her eyes at Batum. Batum wore a cold face. "Tate invited me here. I'm not subjected to you. You shouldn't tell me what to do. Precursors, please, don't." Tate hurried to reconcile them. "We have the same goal. Moreover, I have better information. We shouldn't have internal conflicts at this moment. To find this place, our Soul Clan has planned for years. Hundreds of warriors died. Today, we finally got here. Don't start another battle before we find something." Batum and the Devouring clan woman didn't say more. They snorted and turned away. Farlo and Telika exchanged looks. They saw fear in each other's eyes. Finally, they knew they had just shallow information. For this vestige, the Soul Clan had sacrificed hundreds of warriors. They had planned this for years. Tate's teacher also came to the Sea of Annihilation this time. They didn't know why he had to come here, but now, they knew. They finally realized that Tate's teacher came here because of this vestige. Then, they turned to look around to find that old freak. However, they didn't see him. "Where's my woman?" Batum gazed at Telika. Telika forced a smile and shook his head. "As soon as she came, she left. This place is so spacious. Who knows where she is? Your woman?" Telika disdained him secretly. Recalling when Shi Yang and Mai Ji stated their relationship, he was waiting to see how outrageous Batum would be when he learned about that. He didn't dare to tell him now as he was afraid that Batum wouldn't care about the Black Demon clan and kill him and Farlow if he got enraged. "Prioritize our business." Tate looked at the area ahead. "We should reach the destination first." Batum and the old woman from the Devouring clan nodded. Tate guided them toward the direction Audrey and Mai Ji had disappeared. Watching them hurry to leave, Farlow pondered for a while and then said, "It seems like we only have shallow information. As soon as Mai Ji came here, she headed to that direction too. It means that something important was there. Why would we waste our time here? Let's go. We should go there and see. At least we have to know what happened so we have something to report to the clan when we go home," said Telika begrudgingly. Deep inside the ruins under the light dome, Ling Mai and the members of the mysterious Sky Clan were searching around. Suddenly, they lifted their heads to look. Batum, Tate, and the others were gliding above their heads. Batum stooped to see her. He looked surprised, but he didn't stop. Ling Mai let out a slight cough and gathered her clansmen. "Batum and Tate are here. They're heading to the same direction Mai Ji had left. They didn't stop along the way. It seems like they know something we don't. We shouldn't walk around aimlessly like this." "Madam, please decide," thundered the men. "We're going there too." Ling Mai decided and then led her fellows by flying up. Soon, they found Telika and Farlow behind. They were more certain with the decision to go this direction. "If we can't explore this ancient building, we will never be able to leave. This place is the key." Ming Hao stooped like a meditating monk. "I can't sense the call here. Only you two have the ability to do that. Think harder. What method do I have?" The Godlord's voice was so cold. "If I had a solution, I would have done it a long time ago." "You can't get in there?" Shi Yang was surprised. "You can try," ridiculed the Godlord. "Let me think for a while." As Shi Yang found that the Godlord can't do anything, he didn't hurry to try. He found a place and sat on the rock pile not far from the other two. He lifted his head to observe the building with the moving absolute beginning symbols and tried to think. Quietly, Shi Yang moved his soul altar to stimulate the power Upanishads and change them constantly. The star, devouring, space, and death power Upanishads took turns moving. The aura on his body changed accordingly. It was immense and then it turned into a bottomless dark cave. The next moment, it disappeared and reappeared with heavy death chi. His aura changed marvelously. He was urging the life power Upanishad. All of a sudden, a strong vibe came from the tier of power Upanishad. The life power Upanishad surged. His head now became a sea of life with endless vitality. Almost instantaneously, billions of absolute beginning symbols on the ancient building glowed as bright as the stars. Brian and Ming Hao discolored as they were dumbstruck. They lifted their heads to look at the brilliant ancient building. At the same time, Shi Yang suddenly understood the meaning of those absolute beginning words. So many identical absolute beginning symbols had the same and only meaning: life. Chapter 1426, The Absolute Beginning Original Symbol. Chapter 1426, The Absolute Beginning Original Symbol. The massive archaic building was as big as a mountain. It looked like a tower with hundreds of thousands of windows. Countless absolute beginning symbols were moving on this building. Those absolute beginning symbols represented life. Shi Yang gathered his spirit and observed, revolving his soul altar to stimulate life power Upanishad. Swoosh! His soul altar flew out of his head and moved like a huge cluster of clouds towards the top of the tower-like ancient building. Shi Yang's body was still. His bright eyes were dim and blank. The god Lord Brian and Ming Hao realized the commotion. They emerged from the piles of rocks. Their minds moved along with Shi Yang's soul altar and checked every small change. At this moment, Shi Yang's body didn't have the soul altar to guard and control. He became like a rock statue. If Brian had any dark thought, he could kill Shi Yang easily. Ming Hao discreetly watched Brian. "Don't doubt me. He's still valuable to me. I won't kill him." Brian smiled indifferently. "I'm waiting to see what will happen to him when he finishes fusing with the heaven flames. Moreover, he triggered some changes here. We're counting on him to take us out of here." Ming Hao looked at him in the eyes. Several seconds later, he quieted down. Then, they focused on Shi Yang's soul altar. That soul altar was like a massive cluster of clouds with many tiers. The lowest tier was the Sea of Consciousness, which was a vast, misty sea. Above the Sea of Consciousness was the tier of Power Upanishads with some marvelous features. It had a jet-black cave that was moving like a massive mouth that could swallow everything. It was the Devouring Power Upanishad. It had a galaxy with twinkling stars, the Star Power Upanishad. There was a crystal ball where the life energy fluctuated continuously. Of course, it was the Life Power Upanishad. A strange mirror stood on a corner and reflected many different spaces. It was the Space Power Upanishad. Another section had a whole grey, cold, isolated land with thick death chi. It was the Death Power Upanishad. Those were the wonders on the tier of Power Upanishads. After Shi Yang had reached the immortal realm, his Power Upanishads had transformed while he didn't notice. They had turned into tangible matter and stayed in his tier of Power Upanishads. The Sea of Fire with the original flames was separated with the Power Upanishads even though they shared the same tier. They were like the yin and yang fish. Above the tier of Power Upanishads and Heaven Flames was a star area that had been resized billions of times smaller. It had a vast space, numerous stars where ancient trees, mountains, and rivers grew. Although death chi hovered, there was no creature. It was his incipient extent. Before it opened, it looked a little vague. The co-soul and the host soul occupied the place above the incipient extent and floated like the two gods watching the immense incipient extent, the tier of Power Upanishads, and the Sea of Consciousness. The two godlike souls had different positions. The host soul was hovering a little higher than the co-soul. The co-soul was adjoining with the incipient extent. It looked like they had fused with each other, and below them was the tier of Heaven Flames. The co-soul was floating above the tier of Heaven Flame and blending harmoniously with the incipient extent. That was Shi Yang's soul altar. Today, the cloud-like soul altar slowly floated. Eventually, it hovered above the top of the ancient tower. The Sea of Consciousness at the bottom of that soul altar rippled strangely and fiercely. The crystal ball that represented the Life Power Upanishad on the tier of Power Upanishads was glowing in a strange halo with surging vitality. Then, the Sea of Consciousness began to create many light layers and shroud the colossal tower. Miraculously, the absolute beginning symbols on the tower began to move. From the bottom of the tower, they slowly moved upward and merged with each other on the way. The absolute beginning symbols of the lower floors slowly moved upward and fused with the absolute beginning symbols on the upper floors. It looked like the worms were moving into a small snake. It was utterly bizarre. Brian and Ming Hao looked at each other. Even with their profound knowledge, they didn't know what was going on over there. The only thing they could do was wait. They had to wait until this finished. Meanwhile, they had to try their best to protect Shi Yang to make his body and soul altar get through this peculiar change. I admire this kid. It seems like he got lucky again. Previously, he wasn't even at incipient God realm. After dozens of years, he has reached the immortal realm. He's not far from us, said Ming Hao with some emotion. Brian snorted. Everything is because of the Devouring Power Upanishad. This sort of energy-collecting evil technique could give him endless ability. With Devouring Power Upanishad, he doesn't need to worry about not gathering enough energy. However, he still needs to study the realm. You and I understand clearly that realm comprehension is much more difficult than accumulating energy. As he has reached his realm today, it's enough to prove one thing. His innate talent is also ultimately extraordinary, said Ming Hao indifferently. Brian looked pensive. What was taking place in front of him proved that Ming Hao wasn't lying or exaggerating. Although it was the overbearing power of the devouring power Upanishad that had boosted Shi Yang's realm, they couldn't deny that Shi Yang was excellent in learning his realm. With his pride and position, Brian had to admit that Shi Yang wasn't weaker than anyone. They didn't continue their topic and just watched Shi Yang, waiting to see how the situation was going to develop. 10 days flew hurriedly. The absolute beginning symbols on dozens of lower floors were all gone as they merged upward. Afterward, they became more dazzling and livelier. The vitality emitting from them was so formidable. What is going to happen? Muttered Ming Hao. The God Lord was waiting. He was waiting for Shi Yang to solve the riddle of this ancient building. He longed to get back to desolate territory. As the chief of the God clan in desolate territory, he understood that his homeland was at a critical moment because of Hui. He was worried about his fellow people and desolate territory. He wanted to leave as soon as possible. Suddenly, he frowned and looked afar. Someone is coming. Ming Hao was startled. But then, his eyes brightened as he smiled. 6 hours later, a chilly silhouette came with white mist. As soon as she appeared, she was amazed and yelled, "Uncle." She looked at Ming Hao and felt both happy and worried. Ming Hao smiled for the first time. Good. Finally, you're here. I heard you got. He smiled and raked his eyes on her as if he was searching for something. His line of sight stopped by the dark figure laying on Audrey's shoulder. He was shocked and he shivered. He made a deep bow. Teacher, you're still alive. Ming Hong grinned strangely. After 10,000 years, you kiddo, you've reached such a realm. You didn't fail my favor that year. Ming Hong was Ming Hao's first teacher ever. He was also his uncle in the clan. Of course, he could show his superiority. Ming Hao bent his body respectfully. Don't worry, teacher. I will help you get rid of the brutal soulbind. I will find a good imperial dark body for you so you can continue your cultivation. We'll talk about it later. Ming Hong waved his hand and sat up. He was like a little human sitting on Audrey's shoulder. What are you doing here? Swish. Another warrior arrived. Mai Ji appeared with her mind-stirring beauty. Ming Hao and Brian the God Lord were puzzled. They looked dazzled and stunned, though. However, they had recovered after a few seconds as they had forcefully removed the mind-puzzling state. Mai Ji looked at them. She didn't know what happened. But the fact that Ming Hao and the God Lord weren't affected by her enchanting technique had frightened her. As soon as she arrived, she purposely used her soul enchanting technique. When she used this powerful technique, even ones with dark energy like Batum were affected. They couldn't recover as quickly as these two did. Brian and Ming Hao had taken only a few seconds to resume their sound minds. As far as she'd known, even normal territory ancestor realm experts didn't have such tough minds and spirits. Mai Ji was scared. No one can disturb this place. We should kill anyone we don't know, Brian said nonchalantly and ruthlessly. You want to do that or should I do that? He asked Ming Hao. Hearing him, Mai Ji felt so chilled. Brian's inhuman deeds had brought colors to her face. She immediately realized that this stranger used to have bloody karma. This sort of character would have no mercy to the beauty. Even when she had applied the enchanting technique on him, he still wanted to kill her. This man was truly cold-blooded. Ming Hao didn't pay attention to him. He turned to Audrey and asked skeptically, "Who is this beautiful woman? If you don't know her, we'll kill her. We don't want anyone to be bothered." As Ming Hao was the sole control chief of the bloodthirsty force, his hands were soaked in blood. Killing wasn't a burden in his heart. Somehow, it was a fun and enjoyable act. I'm here to find Shi Yang. It was unfortunate for Mai Ji. She wasn't weaker than Ming Hao and Brian, but she hadn't recovered fully from her previous battle. Moreover, after 10,000 years, Ming Hao and Brian had killed billions of creatures. She couldn't compare to their aura. Instinctively, she was fearful. Looking for Shi Yang? Ming Hao had a strange countenance. He turned to look at the soul altar floating above the massive tower and mocked her. "Oh, Dogs will always eat **t. This rascal kid always messes with beautiful women. Even when he came here, he still maintained such behaviors. He ridiculed Yang, but it somehow applied on my G too. However, after he finished, he found that his niece was blushing. He was so stunned. Are you also with him? Ming Hao forced a smile, looking at Audrey. Audrey was so embarrassed. The Power Upanishad symbol tower, absolute beginning original symbols. However, at this moment, Ming Hong, who was sitting on Audrey's shoulder, suddenly screamed. He flew out and circled like an ugly bat. I remember it. Singh had an appointment with Tate. They said that they would come to the seabed to find it. It's real, unexpectedly. He looked at the massive ancient tower and the absolute beginning symbols, and got strangely excited. Chapter 1427, The Ultimate Power Upanishad. Chapter 1427, The Ultimate Power Upanishad. Ming Hong was like a little bat circling a massive ancient tower. He was cautious enough not to touch the tower. Apparently, he knew its power. Brian and Ming Hao saw his strange deeds, so they stopped paying attention to Audrey and my G. Audrey's blushing slowly subsided. She blamed her uncle for his dog-like mouth that couldn't have elephant ivory. He didn't say anything good enough. Ming Hong circled the ancient tower for a while. He seemed to confirm something. Then, he came back to Audrey's shoulder and sighed. I can't believe what Tate had said is true. Brian, Ming Hao, Audrey, and my G looked at him and waited for him to explain. Ming Hong didn't go around the bush. Very early on, the Soul Clan knew that the Sea of Annihilation's seabed had an absolute beginning vestige. They have sent a lot of warriors to search and explore. Lately, they found the Power Upanishad symbol tower. They said they even found the absolute beginning original symbol. Tate contacted Singh and invited him for this search mission. Singh had agreed. He planned to finish his business on Dragon Lizard Star before going to the Sea of Annihilation to find the Power Upanishad symbol tower. What's the Power Upanishad symbol tower? Frowned Ming Hao. You know it, don't you? Ming Hong grinned and looked at my G from a distance. Indeed, my G nodded. I know the Power Upanishad symbol tower. The Power Upanishad symbol tower has two functions. It contains or creates the absolute beginning original symbol. The Power Upanishad symbol tower is a tool that absolute beginning creatures created. It's like a container. Somehow, it's similar to the bone pond of the Whitebone clan. However, it's much more mysterious. I heard from the precursor in my clan that each of the Power Upanishad symbol tower has hundreds of levels. To create an absolute beginning original symbol, it requires a lot of things. For example, asked Brian. For example, to refine an ice absolute beginning original symbol, it requires millions of warriors who cultivate ice power Upanishad from the very beginning level to the utmost level to be sacrificial objects. She rose her porcelain hand and pointed at so many windows on the massive tower at the lowest level. Those windows lock many warriors cultivating ice power Upanishad. From the lowest level, the warriors' realms are in increasing order: elementary, nascent, human realm, disaster realm, earth realm, nirvana realm, sky realm, spirit god realm, true god realm, king god realm, original god realm, ethereal god realm, incipient god realm, immortal realm, and even experts at territory ancestor realm. As the ultimate powers of the absolute beginning original symbol are different, the arrangement of the warriors at different realms is also different. For example, the elementary warriors could be placed in the lowest 10 levels or up to the 20th level. No matter what thought, the low realm warriors are placed lower as a foundation. Look at it. You can see that the lower levels of the tower are large. The number of warriors that act as a foundation could be millions. Also, there are actually so many of them to be found. The tower gets smaller all the way to the top with fewer and fewer windows. It's because the higher the realm of the warriors, they are harder to find. See, there are around dozens of windows for incipient god realm and 10 windows for immortal realm. Above them is the window for the territory ancestor realm. It can vary. If they want to refine the top-quality absolute beginning original symbol with the ultimate supernatural power, they will need at least one expert at Territory Ancestor Realm. The refining process is simple. Once the Power Upanishad symbol tower opens, it will take the streaks of Power Upanishad in those warriors cultivating Ice Power Upanishad imprisoned in those windows. Then, their spirit, soul, and chi will become one absolute beginning symbol representing Ice Power Upanishad. After that, it will leave the window and move around the Power Upanishad symbol tower unceasingly. If all those absolute beginning symbols merge together, they will create an absolute beginning original symbol, which carries the supernatural abilities of a Power Upanishad. According to what you said, to refine an absolute beginning original symbol, it will need dozens of thousands of creatures cultivating the same Power Upanishad as the sacrifices. Also, the sacrifice requires incipient God realm, immortal realm, and even Territory Ancestor realm experts. The God Lord grimaced. It's true. My Ji also felt chilled from the bottom of her heart. To receive the ultimate Power Upanishad from the absolute beginning original symbol, it will need a Territory Ancestor realm expert as a sacrifice. The ultimate Power Upanishad? Ming Hao was also astounded. The absolute beginning creatures could create billions of lives in their own territory in that era. Those creatures were used as sacrifices to refine the absolute beginning original symbol. It's like how we breed and grow spirit beasts or herbs until they are at a specific strength or qualification when we will kill them or harvest them to refine tools, weapons, and pellets, explained my Ji. Brian and Ming Hao exchanged looks. Their countenances became odder as they sighed inwardly. They lived in desolate territory where desolate was the lord of all things. If it was as my Ji had just explained, they were the creatures desolate had bred and nurtured to refine as pellets later. They were materials with various qualification. The lowest quality products would become the foundation of the Power Upanishad symbol tower. Experts at their realm could become the sacrifice at the top of the tower. Although their realms were different, their consequences were the same. They were materials that desolate would use to create something. I heard from my precursors that in a territory, after dozens of thousands of years of selecting from the elementary to the incipient God realm or immortal realm, the number of qualified warriors is just enough to refine one absolute beginning original symbol. If they have a Territory Ancestor realm expert, the absolute beginning original symbol produced will be at a higher quality. The absolute beginning original symbol is much more precious than the immortal pellet. If it's true that the absolute beginning original symbol contains the ultimate Power Upanishad, it is. My Ji shook her head. Magical light shot out from her eyes as she watched Shiyang's soul altar hover above the Power Upanishad symbol tower. What is he doing? Brian asked with a dark face. Taking the absolute beginning original symbol. One of his Power Upanishads is matched with that absolute beginning original symbol, sighed my Ji. Life Power Upanishad. Ming Hao was surprised. The absolute beginning original symbol in that Power Upanishad symbol tower is the Life Power Upanishad. Those absolute beginning symbols mean life. God Lord Brian's heart beat faster. He thought and then clutched his chest, feeling so bitter. Both Brian and Ming Hao didn't cultivate Life Power Upanishad. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't get it. Moreover, they needed that tower to leave this place. Even if they were indignant, they had to watch and wait for Shiyang to take the absolute beginning original symbol. Also, when dangers were going to come, they had to protect Shiyang too. They knew what the ultimate supernatural abilities were. The Blood Soul Sea and the Death and Life Rotating Bridge were Shiyang's supernatural abilities. They were secret techniques formed with nature's principles, so somehow, they were the gifts of nature. The ultimate Power Upanishad was the origin of a Power Upanishad, the last and most profound form with the deepest and most magical abilities, which could even become a principle. The ultimate Power Upanishad was the principle of a Power Upanishad. It was marvelously unrivaled as it was the rules of earth and heaven that even the Territory Ancestor realm experts couldn't understand. Would it be anything more painful than watching the other take the treasure and have to protect him instead of competing for that treasure? Ming Hao and Brian had twisted faces as if their entire families were killed in front of them. The feeling was like a volcano as they had to suppress them, almost causing internal wounds. Power Upanishad Symbol Tower. It's a Power Upanishad Symbol Tower. We found it. However, Tate's wild laughter came from a far distance. He was screaming, his face eccentric. It's the Power Upanishad Symbol Tower, really, and it's a complete preserved one. Baitam and the old woman from the devouring clan were so excited and shivering. They looked at the Power Upanishad Symbol Tower from a distance as if they were eyeing countless mountains of gold and treasures. Someone is taking the absolute beginning original symbol. Baitam's face was like the face of a strange, wiggling snake. He was extremely ugly. He screamed like he had just gotten stabbed and dashed towards the Power Upanishad Symbol Tower as he thundered, "That darn kid, he doesn't want to live anymore. You think you deserve to compete for the absolute beginning original symbol? You should be dead 1,000,000 times. Baitam." Mai Ji's face was pale as she whined. Baitam stooped to see Mai Ji. He was bewildered for a while and then laughed crazily. "After I kill that kid and get the absolute beginning original symbol, I will have a talk with you. Precursors, we had a clear deal. You too can take the absolute beginning original symbol. The Power Upanishad Symbol Tower will belong to our soul clan. I'm going to report to my teacher. He'll come shortly." Tate pitched his voice. "Tate, do you know what is the biggest mistake you've made?" The old woman of the devouring clan suddenly smiled eccentrically. Tate was bewildered. "What? You shouldn't do it behind your teacher's back. You shouldn't be so greedy to get this soup for yourself alone. You didn't report this to your teacher. That was your biggest mistake." The old woman from the devouring clan grinned. Her soul altar spun and a piece of a disgusting swamp swarmed over, covering Tate and some warriors of the soul clan. Within several seconds, Tate melted into the dirty water in the swamp. The old woman got rid of her erosive swamp and looked at Baitam. To refine an absolute beginning original symbol, it needs the creatures of an entire territory. Baitam, you cultivate alone. Even if you get the tower, you don't have enough power to refine the absolute beginning original symbol. Only the 7 great clans can do that. We should make a deal, shouldn't we? Baitam was about to attack her. Realizing that the absolute beginning symbols hadn't finished merging, he halted and asked, "What deal?" "You take this unknown absolute beginning original symbol. You can exchange it for anything from a territory ancestor realm expert with the matched Power Upanishad. This Power Upanishad Symbol Tower will belong to our devouring clan. I can pledge that our devouring clan will find the sacrifices to help you refine another absolute beginning original symbol that matches your Power Upanishad," hissed the old woman. Baitam was hesitant. However, Mai Ji suddenly called him. "Baitam, if you help our Phantom clan take that Power Upanishad Symbol Tower, I agree with you. I will marry you and serve you as much as you want. I can promise you that the Phantom clan will try our best to refine an absolute beginning original symbol for you." Baitam became more hesitant. "Baitam, it's just a woman. When you reach the territory ancestor realm and you get the absolute beginning original symbol, what else will you not be able to have?" The devouring clan old woman sneered. "Even right now, I can confine this woman and you can do whatever you want with her." Mai Ji's soft body quivered. Chapter 1428 Rise the Might in the Foreign Land. Chapter 1428 Rise the Might in the Foreign Land. Mai Ji knew that hag and how cunningly malicious she was. Hearing her, Mai Ji was chilled. This hag was called Gan Fu. She was also an infamous expert of the devouring clan. She cultivated corrosion power Upanishad and she often used low-realm creatures to cultivate her secret technique. She had offended all the second-class races subjected to the devouring clan. Those clans had complained and wanted to leave the devouring clan's protection. When Gan Fu heard that they wanted to punish her, she didn't say anything and just used her corrosion power Upanishad to destroy those clans. She had even melted their territory. Gan Fu's inhuman deeds made her less welcome even in her own clan. If she hadn't had dark energy, which enabled her to reach the territory ancestor realm, the experts of devouring clan would have had to confine her and keep her from offending more people. Gan Fu was sinister and ruthless. She could kill people without blinking her eyes once. However, she was loyal to the devouring clan. Because of the power Upanishad symbol tower, she had put more effort, indeed. Tate was greedy. He didn't report the progress of this mission to his teacher. He thought that with his teacher's reputation, Gan Fu would listen to him. And now, Tate was just a puddle of blood. Gan Fu had eroded him completely. This venomous hag wasn't afraid of Tate's teacher because of the power Upanishad symbol tower. Of course, she didn't consider Mai Ji anything important. If Mai Ji was at her peak condition, even if she couldn't defeat Gan Fu, she could run away safely. However, she couldn't leave deliberately. Gan Fu didn't care about the Soul Clan and killed Tate. Of course, she wouldn't hesitate to confine her and offend the Phantom Clan too. This made Mai Ji insecure. She turned to Batum unconsciously. Batum hovered in midair, his face uncertain. He was struggling in his mind. Batum was also the lord of an area. Thinking for a few seconds, he grinned and nodded to the old woman. "Hey poisonous hag, get Mai Ji for me. I'm going to get the absolute beginning original symbol first. You can take the power Upanishad symbol tower as long as you promise to refine me an absolute beginning original symbol suitable for my power Upanishad first. Deal." Gan Fu grinned like a banshee. Hovering in the void, she extended her hand to grab Mai Ji. Hundreds of dusky vipers danced like vines and spurted dark smoke as they tried to tie Mai Ji. Mai Ji's eyes were cold while she changed her power Upanishad. Rumble. Crystal icicles of around dozens of meters jutted out of Mai Ji's sexy body. All of them were chilled to the bone and as sharp as a steel knife. Mai Ji now looked like a big hedgehog with many spikes. "I knew you would do that." Gan Fu sounded disdainful. The grey vipers were strangely agile. They were hissing ear-piercingly. When the icicles zoomed near, they released a terrifying erosive aura that turned into ash-grey flames and smoke in the next moment and covered Mai Ji's body entirely. The grey flame was melting Mai Ji's ice. "Mai Ji can't run now." Gan Fu lifted her head with pride and urged Batum. "Get down here quickly." She cautiously looked at Ming Hao and Brian. She focused especially on Ming Hao because she felt insecure almost instantly when she saw him. She felt a familiar aura on him. It was like when she was facing extraordinary warriors cultivating soul control power Upanishad in her clan. Among the 8 great, evil power Upanishads, not many power Upanishads were complete. Many of them couldn't derive the deepest part or the most powerful part of their abilities. Ming Hao gave her an extremely strange feeling. She thought it was absurd, but she felt like she was facing an expert with complete and profound soul control power Upanishad. While attacking Mai Ji, she discreetly observed Ming Hao and tried to find something that could help her get rid of that puzzling feeling. In the same manner, Ming Hao was also shaken. He looked at Gan Fu using her corrosion power Upanishad, his eyes so strange. The sea domain of Nihility has 7 great clans including the Soul Clan, the Mysterious Sky Clan, the Black Demon Clan, the Ancient Monster Clan, the Devouring Clan, the Whitebone Clan, and the Phantom Clan. The Devouring Clan consists of the descendants of Devour, the absolute beginning creature. Their exclusive power Upanishad is the Devouring Power Upanishad. However, it has been lost early on. Now, they focus only on the 8 great, evil power Upanishads. After a long time, their power Upanishads aren't complete anymore. Audrey's cold but clear voice arose and told the secrets that Ming Hao and the God Lord didn't know, including the Devouring Clan's profile. Ming Hao and the God Lord understood it immediately. They exchanged looks and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. "Well, you've been keeping an eye on our bloodthirsty force for 10,000 years. I'm leaving that poisonous woman to you. Deal with her." After pondering for a while, Ming Hao spoke when he saw Batum and Gan Fu seal their deal. "I'll take care of that, Batum. We'll take one each. It will be much faster." He talked about it as it was something easy to do. However, his voice was soaked with murderous intentions, which was utterly frightening. Mai Ji was startled. She knew that Ming Hao and the God Lord weren't ordinary experts. She knew that they were strong, but she couldn't sense the aura of the territory ancestor realm experts on them. So if they weren't territory ancestor realm experts, how could they confront Batum and Gan Fu? Both Batum and Gan Fu had dark energy. They had made one step into territory ancestor realm. Haughty. Mai Ji sneered inwardly. However, what happened next shook her heart. It was like a storm washing through her head. Light that fills the sky, surge with me. The God Lord clapped his hands in front of his chest. The void behind him bloomed with blinding light. This holy halo had the power of 5 elements power Upanishad: metal, wood, water, fire, earth. The 5 power Upanishads were chained by light. At this moment, the God Lord looked like an archangel coming to earth from heaven with endless terrifying pressure. Billions of light beams shot out from his body and shelled Gan Fu. Sizzle. 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 Gan Fu's corrosive energy evaporated under the light as if she had been exposed under the sunlight for a long time. Gan Fu was also affected. She smoked and screamed. She couldn't focus on Mai Ji anymore. Mai Ji could relax a little bit as Gan Fu had retrieved erosive energy attacking her to deal with the God Lord. Who are you? Gan Fu's face changed. You don't have dark energy, but you are really strong. You're not from the 7 great clans. Who are you? The God Lord's power had frightened Gan Fu. She couldn't believe that an opponent at this level could scare her. Instinctively, she turned to Batum to check his situation. At first glance, Gan Fu panicked and screamed ear-piercingly. Soul Control Power Upanishad. Who are you? Why can you use the Soul Control Power Upanishad? It's the Devouring Clan's Power Upanishad. Ming Hao had turned into billions of gloomy shadows. Each shadow was one of his soul clones. The soul energy fluctuated from countless clones and created a soul chain that tied Batum's soul altar down. Once his soul altar was bound, Batum, who had almost entered the territory ancestor realm, was going to be possessed. He was going to become one of Ming Hao's soul slave. It was how domineering the Soul Control Power Upanishad was. The Soul Control Power Upanishad that Ming Hao was using now was the most powerful technique. Even high realm warriors cultivating this power Upanishad in the Devouring Clan couldn't do that. It was unimaginable to Gan Fu. Brian, do you see that the warriors of the sea domain of nihility are just like them? Perhaps the 4 heavenly kings under your command could fight with third sky of immortal realm experts here. I think it's a little strange, said Ming Hao all of a sudden. The God Lord had the same feeling. The sea was the center of this entire universe. It was the place where high-level creatures gathered. Logically, their power Upanishads and realms were the top ones. They were supposed to be stronger than the warriors from desolate territory. But it was like that, actually. Gan Fu cultivated corrosion power Upanishad at third sky of immortal realm, which was a higher realm than Gado, the corrosion chief, had when he was alive. However, when Brian fought against Gan Fu, he found that Gado and Gan Fu weren't very different. However, he believed that if Gado had been at third sky of immortal realm, he would have been much stronger than Gan Fu. The Devouring Clan received power Upanishads from Devour. Their power Upanishads are 2, ancient. When Devour and Desolate fought, Devour had developed his power Upanishads to be much more profound. The power Upanishads he had given Bloodthirsty are of course better and more marvelous. For a long period of time, Bloodthirsty had cultivated those power Upanishads with his excellent talents. He had completed them and gave them new faces and abilities. At the same time, the Devouring Clan often has internal wars, which has worn out their power Upanishads little by little. If we have to compare, they aren't as strong as you two. Ming Hong was still lying on Audrey's shoulder. As he had lived in the sea domain of nihility for 10,000 years, he had profound knowledge. He told them the main reasons immediately. Desolate territory was created by Desolate. I heard that a long, long time ago, Desolate was the most outstanding existence. It has 2 absolute beginning divine weapons too. One is very marvelous. It can create lives. That's why the experts from Desolate territory have the same realms as the warriors from any territory in the sea domain of nihility. We can even be more prominent than them in some aspects. It's not strange that we can challenge the experts at a higher realm. It's because of Desolate and the two absolute beginning divine weapons. The God Lord was startled. He frowned and started thinking. He also got a wisp of Desolate's soul. He used to visit Desolate too. He knew about the existences of the fountainhead of power Upanishads and the ancient tree of life. He had vaguely thought that these two could be the absolute beginning divine weapons from before. And now, with Ming Hong's explanation, he had the answer to his question. Desolate. Bloodthirsty. Gan Fu suddenly bellowed and pointed at the God Lord and Ming Hao. You are from that evil place. You come from the same place as that demon Bloodthirsty. You damn pagans. You've stolen the previous assets of our devouring clan. You've despicably stolen the power Upanishads of our clan. All of you deserve 1,000,000 times of death. Even your ancestor Devour was defeated in our desolate territory. What storm can you rise? The God Lord looked cold and harsh. A brilliant, 5-colored light with the 5 stars, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth was as dazzling as diamonds that crossed the sky and snatched over Gan Fu. Gan Fu was like a sinister, yin viper that was dragged out of its lair and laid under the blazing sunlight. A flame burned her. Her erosive energy dissolved as soon as it gathered. After many years of staying here, the God Lord had recovered his full energy. 10,000 years ago, he had been at the peak of immortal realm already. Because of dark energy, he was stuck at the threshold to the territory ancestor realm. The reason why he couldn't learn dark energy was his fear or what Bloodthirsty had told him, or even the power of Desolate. No one could deny the God Lord's strength and talent. He had led the God clan for 10,000 years, making the clan the overlord of desolate territory. His deeds and spirit were of an unrivaled expert. In that vast desolate territory, he was just behind Bloodthirsty. This hag was just a member of the devouring clan. Even if she understood dark energy, she wasn't an extraordinary demon like Bloodthirsty. It wasn't a surprise that she could be suppressed or killed. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.